The galaxy trembled as an unfamiliar ship tore through hyperspace, its hull humming with an alien resonance that no Star Wars navigational system could identify. On the bridge, stormtroopers shuffled nervously, exchanging uneasy glances. The radar blips twisted, distorted, and vanished. "Sir." "Sensors can't," one officer began, but Commander Veers silenced him with a sharp gesture. The void outside the viewport flickered like shattered glass, and then, with a violent pulse, the unknown craft erupted into the physical plane, hovering above the surface of Coruscant, with impossible precision. Its angular design, armored in reflective metallic alloys, unlike anything in the Empire's archives, reflected the city's neon glow like a shard of a parallel reality. Inside, the armored figure of Master Chief stood still, helmet lights dim but purposeful. Cortana's voice, calm yet urgent, echoed in his mind. "Target. Galactic threat assessment. Eliminate or neutralize. Probability of success. 92.7%. His hands clenched around the Mjolnir rifle, calibrated to pulse rounds that could tear through a Star Destroyer's plating. The multiverse had thrown him into a theater of war, where blaster bolts and lightsaber arcs were the norm, but he was no stranger to impossible odds. Below, in the streets, citizens screamed as a squadron of TIE fighters screamed overhead, locking on to what their targeting computers now identified as an unregistered craft. Laser bolts scorched the cityscape, and the ship above unleashed a pulse that tore through atmosphere shields, scattering debris into the neon-lit streets. A single leap from the ship's bay landed Master Chief atop a massive tower. The impact cracked reinforced concrete, sending sparks and shards into the surrounding air. His visor scanned the area in milliseconds, assessing threats. Stormtroopers, scattered ATST walkers, and faint energy readings that hinted at Force users nearby. The first confrontation erupted in seconds. A squad of stormtroopers, disciplined yet predictably human, advanced, their blasters firing in coordinated bursts. Master Chief reacted with inhuman reflexes. Ducking behind a shattered street pillar, he returned fire, each shot precise, piercing armor with tiny pulses of green-tinted energy. Troopers fell, their screams mixing with the electric hiss of plasma, but even as he advanced, the city itself seemed to groan under the weight of his presence. Sparks flew as his boots struck metal, his armor gleaming like a halo under Coruscant's fractured lights. From the shadows of an adjacent rooftop, a figure emerged, red lightsaber igniting with a hiss that cut the night. Darth Vader. His presence alone made the air heavy, the Force vibrating like a drumbeat in Master Chief's chest. Cortana's voice flickered briefly. Threat level, extreme. Recommendation, tactical engagement. But Master Chief had no time for hesitation. He raised his rifle, firing in a wide arc, while simultaneously deploying an energy shield capable of withstanding lightsaber strikes. Vader deflected, sparks flying in a cascade of red, his movements a perfect blend of the mechanical and the mystical. The ground shook as each collision created shockwaves that shattered windows and sent shards raining down. The duel escalated as the two combatants adapted to one another's unique styles. Master Chief's Mjolnir armor absorbed hits that would have vaporized ordinary soldiers, allowing him to leap and twist in midair, evading Vader's swings with agile precision that belied his bulky frame. Meanwhile, Vader's mastery of the Force extended beyond simple telekinesis. He pulled debris, hurling cars, statues, and even sections of street into Master Chief's trajectory. Cortana calculated trajectory paths, and Chief adjusted instantaneously, sliding beneath debris, firing explosive rounds that detonated in perfect timing to open gaps in Vader's offense. Above them, Imperial Star Destroyers mobilized, sensing the anomaly of the alien craft and its lone occupant. Energy pulses arced across the sky as the ship's guns fired indiscriminately, vaporizing segments of the city. Yet Chief moved like a predator within chaos, each motion calculated, each strike deliberate. The citizens, terrified, scattered into the shadows, unaware that a battle of multiversal magnitude had begun. Then, as if responding to the universe itself, a new energy signature appeared. This one ethereal, shimmering with blue and gold threads. Jedi emerged, one by one, their lightsabers igniting with calm determination. Master Chief paused, assessing. Cortana's analysis was immediate. Potential allies, 37%. Risk, unknown variable significant. But before he could act, Vader roared through the air with a force push that sent the nearest Jedi spinning across the plaza, igniting more chaos. In a stunning display, Master Chief activated the Mjolnir-powered thrusters in his boots, launching into the air with near supersonic speed. He twisted mid-air, firing plasma rounds in spirals that pierced armor and shields alike. The Jedi, caught between awe and terror, found themselves dodging bolts of alien technology unlike anything the Force had previously encountered. One attempted a Force leap to intercept, only to be caught in an energy net projected from Chief's wrist device, a containment field that twisted the air itself, compressing and immobilizing the Jedi in midair. Vader's red lightsaber ignited a vortex of energy, cutting through the cityscape, deflecting incoming rounds and sending vibrations through the air that rattled concrete and glass alike. Sparks, fire, and smoke created a cinematic chaos as each movement, every leap, strike, and impact felt like the collision of two universes. Master Chief rolled across rooftops, deploying grenades calibrated to emit gravitational distortion, tearing open the streets below as if the city were a living entity being reshaped by war. Finally, landing on a central plaza, Chief and Vader faced one another, surrounded by crumbling architecture, smoldering vehicles, and a haze of smoke illuminated by the glow of their respective weapons. The standoff was deafening. The wind carried echoes of a galaxy at war, blaster fire in the distance, and the hum of lightsabers. Chief raised his rifle, Vader raised his saber, and for a heartbeat, time seemed to fracture. Cortana whispered, "Engagement, imminent. Probability of success, 49.6%. The odds were nearly even, but neither warrior would yield. The first explosion that shattered the plaza was not from them, but from the unknown multiversal anomaly that had followed Chief into this universe. A rip in space-time tore through the air, stretching reality into a chaotic spiral. The two combatants paused momentarily, sensing the arrival of an even greater threat, something beyond Vader, beyond the Empire, beyond their understanding. It was a warning. The true war had just begun. Master Chief adjusted his stance, energy shield pulsating, rifle humming with lethal potential. Vader's breathing resonated through the plaza like a mechanical drum, each inhalation syncing with the flickering of the lightsaber. Above, the Star Destroyers reoriented, Jedi prepared, and the citizens of Coruscant watched in silent horror as the first act of an interdimensional war unfolded before them. The air shimmered with tension, electricity, and the raw promise of destruction on a scale no one had yet imagined. The Terran space above Coruscant pulsed violently, a writhing wound in reality itself, its edges shimmering with iridescent energy that defied comprehension. From it emerged a procession of beings unlike any the Star Wars galaxy had seen. Towering, armored constructs of black and silver, each exuding a gravitational pull that bent the city's neon lights into long streaks. Cortana's voice pierced the chaos. Unknown multiversal entities detected. Threat level, catastrophic. Master Chief's visor flared as the HUD mapped hundreds of thousands of potential attack vectors. He inhaled through the mask, calculating, already moving. Every step forward created a shockwave, sending debris cascading from nearby rooftops. Vader, sensing the anomaly, let out a mechanical growl through the Force, pushing several stormtroopers aside with a flick of his hand. His lightsaber ignited in anticipation, but these new arrivals did not respond in kind to the Force. Instead, they hovered, energy coalescing around their limbs like molten stars, gravity bending around them as if the universe itself feared their presence. The city trembled. Even the Star Destroyer's sensors struggled to maintain focus. Master Chief's boots struck a shattered street panel, propelling him forward in a sprint that defied gravity, his rifle firing in rapid bursts. The round struck the nearest construct, detonating in a burst of energy that rippled outward, throwing him back. But he landed with precise grace, energy shield flaring to absorb the residual shockwave. The construct's responses were instantaneous. They generated pulses of antimatter energy, tearing the plaza apart, sending entire streets collapsing into void-like fissures that glowed with multiversal light. From the shadows of Coruscant's upper levels, a squadron of Jedi leapt into action. One, a young Mirielon, unleashed a flurry of lightsaber strikes, channeling the Force to amplify the kinetic impact, but his attacks barely grazed the construct's reflective armor. Another Jedi attempted to engulf one in a Force push, only to be hurled backward as the entity's gravity field intensified, distorting the air around it, bending the laws of physics like wax. Master Chief recognized the pattern instantly, deploying a micro-energy grenade that warped the gravity around the construct, giving the Jedi a momentary advantage. The blue and green lights of the sabers clashed with the construct's energy sheen, creating a kaleidoscope of destructive light. Above, the rip in reality grew wider, and more anomalies spilled through. Alien warships, partially organic and partially mechanical, firing beams that carved through Coruscant's airspace. The Star Destroyers responded, unleashing volleys of turbo lasers. But these new ships twisted space around their hulls, rendering most of the attacks ineffective. Cortana's voice was taut, analyzing faster than any Star Wars tactical AI could. Engagement probability. Dropping. Suggest full-scale multiverse tactical adaptation. Master Chief responded with calculated precision. Deploying his thrusters, he soared above the plaza, using the floating debris as cover. Plasma rounds and energy shields rippled around him as he fired sequentially at weak points Cortana had identified in the construct's armor. Sparks flew, light refracted through the shattered glass of surrounding skyscrapers, and the ground beneath trembled as the construct's counterattacks fractured streets like matchsticks. One massive entity lashed with an appendage that cracked concrete like brittle bone. Chief rolled beneath, detonating a micro-missile in its side. The explosion sent ripples through the gravitational field, momentarily destabilizing the creature. Vader's presence amplified the cinematic tension. He moved with deadly grace, slashing through the constructs with a brutal efficiency that combined his lightsaber skill and the raw power of the Force. Yet even he was struggling. The constructs were adaptive, predicting movements before they occurred, and their energy pulses rattled the very city's foundations. Vader's saber struck a glowing limb, sending a spray of sparks, but the impact barely phased the being. His deep mechanical breathing filled the space between explosions, a counterpoint to the chaos of collapsing streets and floating debris. Then, from one of the multiversal warships, a singular figure emerged, a humanoid armored in black and violet, glowing veins tracing their form, eyes alight with an unnatural intelligence. This was not a Jedi, not a Sith, not a clone or droid. It was an entity that seemed to absorb light itself. Cortana whispered, "High-level intelligence detected. Likely command unit." Master Chief adjusted his HUD to track the figure. Its gaze locked on him, and the air between them vibrated. The gravity of the plaza shifted, pulling debris, stormtroopers, and civilians alike into a surreal whirlwind. Without warning, the entity projected a pulse of dark energy that struck the ground, sending an entire skyscraper tumbling. The shockwave slammed into Master Chief mid-leap, forcing him to deploy his energy shield and thrusters simultaneously. Sparks erupted as the shield clashed with the energy pulse, fragments of concrete embedding in his armor, yet he remained upright, firing precision rounds at the command unit. The shots left glowing scars across the entity's chest, but it barely reacted, simply raising an arm and sending a telekinetic wave that obliterated several city blocks. The multiverse-scale fight escalated further as Jedi and Imperial forces attempted coordinated strikes. Jedi force pushes collided with energy pulses, turbo lasers cut across reality-warping shields, and Master Chief's arsenal became a blur of lethal efficiency. He activated his thrusters to achieve orbital-level altitude above the plaza, raining plasma rounds that created miniature explosions mid-air, detonating construct limbs before they could strike. One particularly massive construct grabbed a nearby Star Destroyer with impossible strength, twisting it like paper, sending debris cascading into the city below. In this maelstrom of destruction, the young Mirialan Jedi summoned a force tornado, hurling it at one of the smaller constructs, creating a temporary vacuum that exposed its core. Master Chief calculated the trajectory, firing a concentrated plasma volley directly into the core, causing a brilliant explosion that shattered the construct into shards of energy and metal. Sparks, light, and debris rained down like a storm. The Jedi, momentarily awed, raised their saber in triumph, but the command unit, the humanoid in black and violet, simply observed, unaffected. Its presence was a calm amidst absolute chaos, and the sense of impending doom hung like a dark cloud over the battlefield. Vader roared through the Force, sending a wave of red energy sweeping across the plaza, slamming constructs into buildings, cracking streets, and scattering civilians in a protective sphere of momentum. Master Chief, noticing a flank opening, launched himself toward the command unit, his boots igniting in a brilliant thruster flare. Plasma rounds blazed around him, lighting the night sky as he closed the distance. With a swift swing of a grappling hook and a perfectly timed jump, he landed atop the entity's shoulder, slamming his rifle into its armored neck joint. Sparks erupted, the creature's purple veins flaring, yet it barely flinched, twisting with terrifying strength and throwing Chief off in a mid-air arc that sent him crashing into a partially destroyed plaza fountain. The battle was escalating to multiverse-shattering proportions. Energy fields ripped through the air, gravity twisted and bent around combatants, and the city itself groaned under the weight of the conflict. Above, the rip in space continued to expand, a swirling vortex of neon, purple, and blue, hinting at an even more colossal force yet to arrive. Master Chief rose, energy shield flaring, visor scanning for weaknesses, while Vader's breathing and saber hiss harmonized with the chaos around them. Cortana's voice flickered urgently. Warning. Additional anomalies detected. Engagement probability. Critical. Both warriors understood. This was only the opening act. And then, the command unit's voice echoed. Deep, resonant, and alien. You are not of this cosmos. Yet you resist. Fascinating. Soon, all universes will bend to my will. Master Chief's visor glinted in response. Cortana's voice, calm but resolute, whispered, Target acquisition. Multiverse-level threat. Recommended response. Engage at maximum protocol. The sky above Coruscant pulsed violently, fragments of other realities bleeding through. Streets were now warped in impossible angles, gravity itself fluctuating like a living creature. Jedi and Imperial forces could barely comprehend the scale, and even Vader paused, sensing an intelligence and power beyond the Force. Master Chief adjusted his armor, weapons at the ready, and leapt into the air, targeting the humanoid command unit with precision and lethal intent. The battle for the multiverse had begun in earnest, and neither side would relent. The multiverse rip above Coruscant expanded, tearing the night sky into a kaleidoscope of impossible colors. Violet storms, neon streaks, and molten arcs of energy that defied comprehension. The air itself screamed, charged with gravitational anomalies that tugged at every object and living being. From the gaping wound, legions of alien war constructs poured forth, hulking, semi-organic titans fused with machinery that twisted light around them, each movement creating shockwaves that crumpled streets like parchment. Cortana's voice was sharp. Engagement risk, cataclysmic. Probability of survival, 17.4%. Master Chief's boots ignited thrusters as he launched into the air, rifle blazing with precision bursts calibrated to pierce the strongest alloys. His energy shield pulsed with every impact from plasma beams, debris, and gravitational spikes. Jedi and stormtroopers scrambled below, desperately trying to coordinate. Vader swung his lightsaber, red arcs slicing through constructs, deflecting energy pulses. But even he recognized the magnitude of the threat. The multiverse had arrived, and with it, an intelligence that bent reality itself. The command unit, humanoid and violet-veined, hovered at the center of the rip, its gaze fixed on Master Chief. With a single gesture, it projected a gravitational field that twisted the plaza, flipping vehicles, scattering Jedi, and lifting stormtroopers into a tornado of destruction. Master Chief activated a concussive energy pulse from his armor, propelling himself through the warped air with a blast that sent several constructs flying, shattering reinforced concrete in spectacular fashion. Sparks, fire, and arcs of neon energy illuminated the city in a symphony of chaos. Then the unknown warships materialized, gigantic, organic mechanical hybrids that defied physics, their hulls bending light as though reality recoiled from their form. Turbo lasers and plasma cannons erupted, slashing through streets and smashing into skyscrapers. Star destroyers attempted to respond, unleashing volleys of fire, but most shots disintegrated in midair, intercepted by reality-warping shields projected by the invading fleet. Above it all, the rift pulsed like a living heartbeat, feeding energy to the humanoid command unit, its aura growing with every passing second. Master Chief calculated, pivoted midair, and unleashed his most powerful weapon yet, a concentrated multiverse-calibrated plasma round, powered by the ship's fusion core and his Mjolnir augmenters. The projectile streaked across the chaos, lighting the streets with blazing arcs, smashing into the command unit's energy shield. The impact was monumental, a shockwave that rippled through buildings, tossed stormtroopers like rag dolls, and created cracks in the very warp of space around the plaza. Yet the unit barely staggered, its glow intensifying, veins pulsing as if it fed on the energy of the explosion. Vader roared through the force, hurling debris and enemies alike in a hurricane of crimson arcs. His lightsaber ignited, swinging with deadly precision, severing construct limbs midair. Jedi surged forward, blue and green blades forming a glowing storm, striking at constructs, attempting to contain the invasion. But the constructs adapted instantaneously, their energy fields shifting, bending, and neutralizing the force-infused attacks. The city trembled. Even the floating platforms, roads, and skyscrapers groaned under the pressure of gravitational distortions. Amid the chaos, Master Chief deployed energy tether grenades, wrapping several massive constructs in fields of compressed gravity. Sparks exploded as the constructs struggled, ripping up concrete and metal as they twisted against the artificial pull. Utilizing the momentary weakness, he unleashed his railgun, firing a single, enormous projectile that shattered multiple constructs at once, leaving trails of molten metal and smoking debris. The air crackled with residual energy, arcs of light ricocheting across twisted steel. Cortana's voice remained steady but tense, tactical efficiency, improving. Probability of target elimination, 33.2%. Then, a new, terrifying phenomenon occurred. The rift rip fractured further, and multiple versions of Master Chief emerged from alternate realities, each identical in armor, but subtly different, glowing with alien auras. They moved as one, synchronized, their rifles blazing with devastating precision. Cortana gasped in a rare tone of awe. Temporal multiverse convergence detected. Reinforcements, self-replicating variants. Tactical advantage, high. The clones barreled into the battlefield, lasers cutting constructs, grenades tearing holes through warped streets, every impact accompanied by explosive shockwaves. The command unit reacted instantly, projecting a violet energy dome over the entire plaza, bending space to repel the converged chiefs. Sparks danced along the edges, and gravitational distortions ripped stormtroopers and Jedi alike into tumbling vortices. Vader sensed the rising chaos, swinging his saber to disrupt energy flows, creating moments of opening in the otherwise impervious shield. Master Chief leapt through one such opening, landing atop the command unit, fists and rifle striking in rapid succession. Sparks flew, energy flares illuminated the night, and the humanoid staggered. But then, with a pulse of sheer reality-warping force, slammed Chief into the plaza below, leaving a crater that glowed with multiversal energy. From above, the alien warships unleashed synchronized barrages of plasma and antimatter energy. Entire city blocks vaporized as Coruscant's skyline became a maelstrom of fire, smoke, and distorted reality. Jedi formed protective barriers, deflecting some of the fire, while Master Chief and his variants pushed forward, deploying energy shields and thrusters in perfect tandem. Each strike, each movement, was choreographed chaos, a symphony of destruction against a seemingly invincible foe. The command unit's voice rang again. "You resist well, but resistance is meaningless. This universe, like all others, will kneel." Its gaze swept across the battlefield, locking on multiple targets simultaneously, bending gravity, energy, and time around them. Yet Master Chief rose from the crater, visor glowing with determination, thrusters igniting as he propelled himself into the air. Cortana's analysis streamed in real time. Target, command unit. Maximum lethality mode engaged. With a synchronized gesture, all multiverse variants fired their most destructive weapons, energy converging into a single beam of concentrated plasma, augmented with gravitic distortion. It struck the command unit's shield, tearing through the violet aura in a cascade of sparks, light, and destructive energy that shattered the surrounding cityscape. The impact sent ripples across the multiverse rift, causing nearby warships to stagger and several constructs to implode. Even Vader sensed the shift. The balance of power had begun to tilt, albeit slightly. He unleashed a final hurricane of force energy, hurling constructs and debris into the fractured rift, creating a temporary collapse that exposed the humanoid command unit. Master Chief landed atop the crumbling debris, energy shield flaring, rifle and fists ready. Sparks flew as he prepared to deliver the next devastating assault. Yet the command unit smiled, or rather, its humanoid features twisted in a simulation of a smile, and whispered, "This is only the beginning. Realignment approaches. All realities will awaken, and I will be the axis." The rift pulsed violently, and from within, shadows of an even greater threat began to emerge, titanic, incomprehensible forms that dwarfed the city itself. The multiverse war had only just begun, and Master Chief, along with the Star Wars forces, would need to face the unimaginable next. The air above Coruscant warped violently, glowing streaks of violet, cyan, and molten gold slicing the night sky. The rift in space had grown into a gaping wound, a jagged portal that shivered as if alive, feeding energy to the humanoid command unit and its alien fleet. Star Destroyers were crushed mid-flight by impossible gravitational distortions, tumbling into the city in fireballs that shattered buildings like toys. Cortana's voice crackled in Master Chief's helmet. "Threat level, Universe-scale. Recommend immediate escalation protocol." Master Chief's boots flared as he launched into the air, thrusters propelling him above the crumbling plaza. Around him, multiple versions of himself from alternate realities coalesced into a synchronized formation. Plasma rounds streaked across the sky, detonating against alien constructs and warships, sending shockwaves that bent the very fabric of reality. The energy radiating from the multiversal rift caused the city to twist. Streets curled upward, buildings folded in on themselves, and even the surface of the planet seemed to quake beneath the assault. Darth Vader, standing atop a partially intact skyscraper, swung his lightsaber with lethal precision. Red arcs of energy cleaved through the alien constructs with deadly force, but every strike unleashed an explosive backlash, shaking the skyline. Jedi surged forward in coordinated formation, blades glowing, using the Force to stabilize debris, protect civilians, and strike at openings in the construct's armor. One Master Chief variant deployed gravitic pulse grenades, sending multiple constructs tumbling into each other in a symphony of sparks, fire, and shattered metal. The humanoid command unit hovered at the heart of the rift, eyes glowing like twin supernovas. With a sweeping gesture, it unleashed a multiverse-calibrated shockwave, bending space around the battlefield. Star Destroyers twisted mid-air as if reality itself were rebelling. Coruscant's skyline folded in on itself like origami. Stormtroopers screamed as gravity twisted them into impossible angles, while Jedi and Chiefs alike struggled to maintain footing against the shifting air currents. Master Chief soared toward the command unit, dodging plasma arcs and twisted debris. His visor calculated trajectories and weak points in real time. A pulse grenade detonated mid-air near the unit, creating a miniature singularity that tore apart nearby constructs. Sparks, molten metal, and neon fragments rained in arcs across the plaza. Cortana's voice was taut. "Optimal strike opportunity detected. Recommend combined assault with Vader and multiverse units." Vader sensed the opening and leapt from his skyscraper perch, swinging his saber in a downward arc infused with the Force. Debris hurled into the command unit, colliding with it as Master Chief landed atop the humanoid's shoulder. Together they struck with lethal precision, fists, rifle, and lightsaber converging. The humanoid staggered briefly, purple veins flaring, energy pulsing outward, bending space as it fought back. A shockwave exploded outward, throwing both combatants several dozen meters, tearing through the plaza, sending remnants of buildings into orbit. Above, the multiverse rift convulsed. From it emerged titanic, incomprehensible entities, colossal forms that dwarfed skyscrapers, their limbs spanning kilometers, energy radiating like stars. These were beings of raw cosmic force, each movement warping reality around them. Cortana's voice was a rare whisper of awe. Existence-level threat detected. Probability of planetary survival, less than 3%. Jedi attempted to defend, combining the Force to hurl constructs and debris into the Titans, but each attack barely grazed their massive armor. The ground shuddered under the weight of their presence, fissures splitting the planet's surface in cascading lines of molten energy. Master Chief activated the full Mjolnir power core, energy flares erupting across his armor. Plasma rounds now contained multiversal distortion fields, capable of penetrating even the titanic entity's defenses. He deployed thrusters at full force, propelling himself toward one of the colossal beings, dodging its massive energy blasts that scorched the air and cracked the planet's crust. Sparks, molten rock, and neon arcs illuminated the battlefield in chaotic symphony. Vader swung in unison with Chief's strike, a slash of red energy meeting a volley of multiverse-calibrated plasma. The command unit roared, extending tendrils of violet energy that wrapped around the colossal titans, attempting to absorb their cosmic power. The energy pulses tore through Coruscant, sending fragments of the city into orbit. Jedi channeled the Force, creating a protective bubble that shielded civilians while simultaneously striking openings in the Titan's armor. The battlefield was a storm of light, shadow, energy, and kinetic chaos, every strike reshaping the very skyline of the planet. Then, from the rift, a deeper, darker force emerged, a shadowy entity whose presence swallowed light, its form incomprehensible, bending perception itself. Its voice, a chorus of countless whispers, reverberated through every corner of reality. You meddle in scales beyond comprehension. All realities will yield. The humanoid command unit bowed slightly, acknowledging this superior entity, its violet energy flaring in response. Master Chief's visor recorded data at an unprecedented rate. Cortana whispered, "Existence-level intelligence confirmed. Engagement probability, near impossible." But even in the face of this cosmic nightmare, Master Chief advanced. He leapt atop a fragment of a fallen skyscraper, firing concentrated plasma rounds at the humanoid command unit, while Vader's saber carved a path through constructs, creating temporary openings. The multiverse variants of Chief moved in perfect synchronization, their weapons cutting swaths through alien forces, each impact sending shockwaves that distorted the battlefield. The titanic entities, sensing resistance, slammed limbs into the planet, creating massive quakes that cracked the surface, ripped oceans, and toppled skyscrapers. Plasma beams and energy arcs intersected in the air, creating brilliant explosions that lit the night sky in cascading flares of violet, blue, and red. Jedi and Imperial forces were scattered, but still fought, weaving between constructs and debris, using every resource at their disposal to stall the encroaching threat. Finally, Master Chief and Vader synchronized a devastating attack, Vader using the Force to slam a massive fragment of a Star Destroyer into the humanoid command unit, while Chief's plasma round struck its core. Sparks exploded into the sky, a multiversal shockwave reverberating across the planet, tearing open temporary rifts in nearby reality, scattering constructs and damaging alien warships. The command unit staggered, revealing cracks in its previously impervious armor, energy flaring wildly. Yet in the sky, the shadowy cosmic entity loomed, eyes like voids, heralding an even greater catastrophe. The battle had escalated beyond planetary, beyond city-level destruction. It was now a multiverse-scale conflict, a collision of realities, powers, and universes. Master Chief, his armor scorched and battered, rifle blazing, visor glowing, prepared for the next phase. Vader, red saber slicing through constructs, stood resolute. Jedi rallied amidst the chaos. And above all, the rift pulsed, spilling threats unimaginable. The final words of the humanoid command unit echoed across the cityscape. This universe and all others will awaken, and only I will endure. Master Chief's visor reflected the growing rift, his HUD mapping an infinite battlefield, and Cortana's voice, calm but steely, concluded, "Probability of victory, unknown. Protocol, continue engagement." The multiverse war had reached its crescendo. Every pulse of energy, every strike, every leap, every explosion reshaped the reality around them. And as Master Chief, Vader, Jedi, and their allies prepared for the next wave, a larger, incomprehensible awakening stirred within the rift, something that would dwarf even the titanic entities now descending upon Coruscant. The final image of the segment lingered, a shattered city skyline, violet and neon energy pulsing across the horizon. Master Chief and Vader standing atop rubble, facing the rift, aware that what came next would threaten all existence itself. The sky above Coruscant was unrecognizable. Reality itself had become fluid, twisting in impossible angles. Streets floated, buildings hovered mid-air, and violet energy rifts spiraled across the horizon, fracturing light and shadow. The humanoid command unit hovered at the epicenter of the largest rift, its purple veins glowing like molten lightning. From the tear emerged titanic entities, incomprehensible in size and form, moving with a grace that defied logic, their every step sending tremors across the cityscape. Cortana's voice, clipped and urgent, filled Master Chief's HUD. Existential level threat detected. Engagement, immediate. Probability of survival, 4.7%. Master Chief activated his Mjolnir full overdrive protocol. Energy flared across his armor, the thrusters igniting in brilliant arcs. Plasma rounds pulsed in continuous streams from his rifles, each projectile calibrated to penetrate constructs, titans, and rift distortions alike. His multiverse variants moved in perfect synchronization, forming a deadly formation that cut through gravity-twisted streets. Every jump, dodge, and shot left trails of molten energy, sparks, and arcs of blinding neon light. The city groaned under the assault, concrete and steel folding like paper under the cosmic pressures. Vader, standing beside Master Chief on a floating chunk of Coruscant Tower, swung his lightsaber in wide, devastating arcs. Red energy sliced through alien constructs, cleaving limbs, severing warship appendages, and creating shockwaves that collided with plasma explosions in midair. Jedi formed protective bubbles around fleeing civilians, using the Force to stabilize collapsing streets and hurl debris into advancing titans. But even combined, their efforts barely dented the alien forces. Every attack met an adaptive counter. Constructs twisted space, titans absorbed energy, and the humanoid command unit amplified the rift's power with every strike. The command unit raised its arms, projecting a pulse of violet energy that rippled across Coruscant like a tidal wave. Buildings disintegrated, star destroyers were crushed mid-flight, and even the floating streets fractured under the pressure. But Master Chief responded with surgical precision. Thrusters blazing, he launched directly at the humanoid, dodging energy arcs, plasma bursts, and gravity spikes. He deployed gravitic tether grenades, wrapping the unit in a localized field that compressed and destabilized its armor. Sparks erupted, arcs of violet light shimmering across the battlefield, and the humanoid staggered. From the rift above, colossal titans descended, each larger than a mountain, their limbs radiating molten energy and gravitational force. Master Chief activated the Mjolnir multiverse fusion cannon, firing concentrated energy pulses that tore through two titans simultaneously, creating explosive shockwaves that leveled entire city blocks. Jedi leapt between fragments of buildings, lightsabers spinning in blinding arcs, slashing construct limbs mid-air. Vader hurled debris through the Force, smashing titans into one another with terrifying momentum. The humanoid command unit responded with a devastating reality warp pulse. Streets curled upward, buildings folded mid-air, and the plasma volleys from Master Chief bent around invisible distortions. A massive purple tentacle of energy shot toward Chief, smashing him into a skyscraper fragment. Sparks flew, concrete exploded, and his armor flared from the kinetic energy absorption. Cortana whispered urgently, "Critical structural compromise detected. Recommendation: immediate counteroffensive." Chief recalibrated on the fly. Using the thrusters for mid-air agility, he leapt, slamming a gravitic pulse grenade into the humanoid's core. The resulting detonation tore open the armor, arcs of molten violet energy spiraling outward. At the same time, his multiverse variants fired in unison, their combined energy streams piercing the humanoid's defenses like a spear of light. Sparks, plasma, and energy arcs collided in a cascade of destruction, illuminating the fractured cityscape in blinding bursts. Vader, sensing the opening, charged through the debris, lightsaber slashing, cutting constructs and energy tendrils alike. He collided with the humanoid's gravitational pulse, creating a shockwave that sent him tumbling but intact. Jedi joined, focusing their Force energy, creating beams and protective fields that pushed back titanic entities, stabilizing fragments of the city long enough for Chief and Vader to strike. The battlefield had become a symphony of chaos. Light arcs, energy explosions, floating debris, gravitational distortions, and blaster fire colliding across multiple layers of warped space. Then, from the deepest part of the rift, a shadowy, incomprehensible entity emerged. Its form defied physics, a twisting mass of darkness and light, absorbing all energy around it. Its presence flattened gravity, bending reality with each pulse, dwarfing the titans and constructs. The humanoid command unit bowed slightly, amplifying its power from the rift to stabilize its defenses. Cortana's voice, tense and rare in uncertainty, said, "Existence-level intelligence detected. Probability of survival, near zero. Recommend maximum offensive synergy." Master Chief responded instinctively. Thrusters flaring, he launched toward the humanoid again, rifle blazing, plasma bolts twisting through warped air to strike the core. Vader followed, slashing with the Force-enhanced lightsaber, and Jedi reinforced with combined Force energy. Sparks erupted, arcs of violet and red collided, creating explosions that twisted the night sky. Titans staggered from the combined attack, constructs disintegrated mid-air, and fragments of the city were hurled into orbit. But the shadow entity's presence was overwhelming. Each attack barely slowed the humanoid command unit, whose energy now pulsed in resonance with the rift. Gravity waves shattered streets, plasma bolts curved unpredictably, and titans rose again with renewed ferocity. Master Chief's visor flared, analyzing multiversal vectors, and Cortana initiated the final protocol. Activation, multiverse-level offensive array, deploying synchronized variants for maximal impact. All variants of Master Chief converged into a coordinated formation, firing volleys calibrated to distort space, collapse gravity, and overload energy fields. Explosions ripped through constructs, titans, and fragments of the humanoid, creating shockwaves that bent city streets and warped skyscrapers into impossible angles. Vader unleashed a final Force hurricane, slamming debris and titans into each other. Jedi channeled the Force into massive beams that struck the rift itself, creating cascading energy eruptions that illuminated the battlefield. The humanoid command unit staggered, its armor cracking under combined fire. Sparks, violet energy, and arcs of plasma flew in all directions. The titanic entities faltered, momentarily stunned by the coordinated assault. The shadow entity in the rift observed silently, its eyes glowing like voids, signaling that the true awakening had yet to begin. Master Chief landed atop a shattered plaza, energy shield flaring, rifle raised. Vader stood beside him, red saber spinning in arcs of deadly precision. The city, fractured and burning, trembled under the weight of multiversal combat. But the combined forces of Master Chief, Vader, and Jedi had created the first glimmer of hope in an impossible war. The humanoid command unit, purple veins flaring, whispered, "This is only the beginning. All realities will awaken, and I will be their axis." The rift pulsed violently, and shadows of a greater threat emerged, stretching across multiple planes of existence. Master Chief's visor reflected the widening anomaly, Cortana's voice calm but resolute. Probability of ultimate victory, unknown. Protocol, continue engagement. The multiverse war had escalated to planet-shattering, existence-defying stakes, and every strike, every leap, every explosion now had consequences across realities. Master Chief, Vader, Jedi, and the shattered remnants of Coruscant prepared for the next wave, aware that even greater horrors lurked within the rift, waiting to awaken. The final image lingered, a fractured city skyline, Master Chief and Vader standing resolute atop floating debris, violet energy rifts spiraling overhead, titanic constructs shattered, and the shadow entity observing, an ominous herald of the universal scale awakening yet to come. The shattered skyline of Coruscant still smoldered, but the battle was far from over. Above, the rift pulsed violently, a jagged tear in reality that stretched beyond the horizon. From its depths emerged new adversaries, colossal humanoid figures that radiated impossible energy, their forms constantly shifting, sometimes metal, sometimes shadow, sometimes fire. Each exhaled cosmic pulses that cracked the very fabric of existence. Cortana's voice crackled urgently in Master Chief's helmet. Existential threat escalation detected. Probability of planetary survival, less than 2%. Master Chief's boots flared with Mjolnir thrusters as he launched into the war-torn airspace. His visor displayed hundreds of potential trajectories, each one calculated in milliseconds. His multiverse variants formed a deadly formation around him, firing precision plasma volleys that cut through the newly emerging cosmic titans. Sparks, arcs of violet energy, and explosions streaked across the fractured city, creating an apocalyptic canvas of neon light and molten debris. Darth Vader leapt from a partially destroyed skyscraper, red lightsaber spinning in deadly arcs, force energy radiating outward. His swings cleaved constructs and sliced the air itself, producing shockwaves that collided with the Titan's energy fields. Jedi, scattered across floating debris, channeled the force to stabilize twisting city blocks, hurling fragments at the newcomers while protecting civilians caught in the multiverse distortion. The air shimmered with arcs of blue, red, violet, and gold energy as the battlefield had transformed into a storm of cosmic-scale destruction. The new adversaries were adaptive and intelligent. Each movement warped gravity, each strike bent reality, and each pulse of energy resonated with the rift, amplifying chaos across the city. One Titan slammed a colossal fist into the plaza, sending a shockwave that flipped buildings into the air. Master Chief activated his thrusters, propelling himself directly into the impact, plasma rifle blazing. His shots streaked through warped air, striking at weak points Cortana had identified with surgical precision. Sparks and molten fragments erupted, illuminating his armor in a violent glow. The humanoid command unit, now partially merged with the rift's energy, hovered above the battlefield. Its purple veins flared as it extended limbs of shimmering energy to manipulate both constructs and titans. Every pulse it emitted twisted the battlefield further, bending space and pulling Jedi and stormtroopers alike into chaotic spirals. Master Chief's multiverse variants coordinated flawlessly, launching gravitic tether grenades to entangle titans mid-air. Sparks and arcs of molten energy scattered across the streets, creating temporary openings for concentrated plasma strikes. Vader sensed a momentary opening and hurled a chunk of floating skyscraper through the force, slamming it into one of the titanic invaders. The impact produced a shockwave that resonated across the warped cityscape, shattering nearby constructs and partially destabilizing the humanoid command unit. Jedi joined, unleashing beams of concentrated force energy that collided with molten arcs, producing an explosion of color and light. The battlefield had become a living tapestry of destruction, every strike rewriting reality in real time. The new Titans responded with terrifying force. One raised a colossal arm, sending a gravitational pulse that ripped streets from the city below and hurled them like missiles. Another exhaled an aurora-like energy breath that twisted the air, scorching metal and vaporizing entire street blocks. Even the multiverse variants of Master Chief had to react with split-second precision, their thrusters igniting as they dodged and counterattacked in unison. Sparks, molten fragments, and energy arcs illuminated the fractured skyline in blinding flashes. Master Chief identified the primary nexus of the new adversary's coordination. A colossal humanoid at the center of the rift, its body constantly reshaping, absorbing energy from the surrounding titans. Cortana's analysis was sharp. Primary threat identified. Recommend concentrated multiverse-level assault. Using thrusters, Chief propelled himself toward the nexus, weaving through debris, energy pulses, and gravitational distortions. Plasma rounds streaked around him in a deadly spiral, colliding with titans and constructs alike, leaving trails of molten energy in their wake. The humanoid command unit reacted, sending out a pulse that warped time locally. Master Chief and his variants found themselves moving slower, each step heavy with cosmic resistance. Vader sensed the distortion and surged through it with the Force, slicing tendrils of energy that the humanoid emitted to manipulate the battlefield. Jedi coordinated protective fields and offensive strikes, creating a synchronized assault that targeted both the humanoid and its colossal minions. Above, the rift convulsed violently. From its deepest layers, new shadows emerged, forms larger than the Titans, almost incomprehensible in scale. Their presence flattened light, bending reality, and warping the battlefield further. Sparks and arcs of energy collided in midair as Master Chief launched the final coordinated volley from all variants, concentrating every plasma round, every gravitic grenade, and every kinetic strike at the nexus of the humanoid command unit. The humanoid staggered, its armor cracking, veins flaring wildly. Titans were thrown into unstable orbits, constructs shattered, and fragments of Coruscant's skyline floated in suspended chaos. Vader roared through the Force, sending debris hurtling into the rift, while Jedi channeled energy beams that converged on the humanoid. The multiverse variants of Chief unleashed a final plasma convergence, striking the humanoid's core in unison. Sparks, arcs of violet, red, and blue energy exploded outward, and the battlefield shook violently. But even as the humanoid faltered, the deeper shadows in the rift pulsed with awareness. The war had only escalated. These new beings radiated intelligence and power beyond the humanoid's capabilities. Cortana's voice, tense but precise, warned, existence-level threat emerging. Probability of victory uncertain. Recommend continued engagement. Master Chief landed atop a floating fragment of the plaza, energy shield flaring, rifle blazing. Vader stood beside him, red saber spinning arcs of crimson light, while Jedi stabilized the battlefield. Sparks, molten fragments, and energy arcs collided, the fractured city illuminated by multiverse-scale chaos. The humanoid command unit, staggering and vulnerable, whispered, "All realities will awaken, and only I will endure." From the rift, shadows of the incomprehensible entities stretched across multiple planes of existence, heralding the next stage of universal awakening. Master Chief, Vader, Jedi, and their allies prepared for the inevitable escalation, fully aware that the battle for Coruscant was only the opening act in a war that it could consume all realities. Coruscant groaned under the weight of reality-bending forces. Streets twisted upward into floating spirals, skyscrapers bent like molten metal, and the night sky burned with violet, gold, and cyan arcs from the multiverse rift. From the deepest layers of the rift, the shadows, the incomprehensible entities, emerged in full form. Their presence flattened light, bending time and gravity, each movement producing shockwaves that cracked the planet's surface. Cortana's voice pierced the chaos. Existence-level threat. Confirmed. Probability of planetary survival, 0.8%. Recommend maximum offensive protocol. Master Chief ignited his Mjolnir thrusters, launching into the war-torn airspace. His visor displayed multiversal trajectories, plotting the most efficient strikes against the humanoid command unit and the colossal shadows emerging from the rift. The multiverse variants of Chief moved in deadly synchronization, a precision strike force firing plasma rounds, calibrated to distort energy fields, destabilize constructs, and breach the titanic being's defenses. Sparks, molten fragments, and arcs of energy streaked across the fractured cityscape, turning the battlefield into a chaotic masterpiece of destruction. Darth Vader stood atop a floating fragment of a destroyed skyscraper, red lightsaber spinning, radiating force energy in every direction. He hurled debris with telekinetic precision, slamming Titans into each other, while Jedi channeled the Force to stabilize civilians and hurl fragments at enemy constructs. The combined assaults created explosions that twisted gravity, bending streets and skyscrapers in impossible directions. Each strike left molten streaks of neon light in the night sky. The humanoid command unit, now partially fused with the rift's energy, exhaled pulses of purple power, bending time locally. Titans and constructs followed its commands with preternatural precision, launching counterattacks that tore through floating streets and debris. Master Chief dodged mid-air, thrusters flaring as he fired volleys that collided with enemy energy fields. Sparks and molten fragments erupted, illuminating the battlefield in chaotic brilliance. A colossal shadow entity raised a limb the size of a mountain, slamming it into Coruscant's surface. The shockwave shattered multiple city blocks, sending fragments into orbit. Master Chief activated his full energy shield, absorbing the impact while returning fire. Plasma bolts streaked across warped air, colliding with the humanoid command unit and titanic entities. Sparks, arcs of violet and red, and molten fragments rained down, twisting the battlefield into a surreal landscape. Vader surged through the chaos, lightsaber-cutting arcs through constructs and titanic limbs. Jedi coordinated force pushes, forming protective barriers and focused strikes. The humanoid command unit emitted a pulse that warped space, slowing time locally for all defenders. Master Chief adjusted on the fly, using thrusters and gravitic grenades to destabilize the humanoid's armor. Sparks erupted, molten arcs flashed, and fragments of the city spiraled around him. Above the rift, the incomprehensible shadows expanded further, their presence bending reality on a planetary scale. They exhaled waves of energy that cracked the surface, vaporized structures, and distorted gravity. Cortana calculated probabilities at lightning speed. Engagement success. Probability, less than 1%. Recommend immediate maximum convergence strike. Master Chief deployed gravitic pulse grenades in a coordinated pattern, striking multiple Titans simultaneously. Energy arcs collided in the sky, creating blinding flashes and multiverse-shattering shockwaves. The humanoid command unit roared, sending energy tendrils to manipulate the Titans. Its purple veins glowed violently, synchronized with the rift. Master Chief propelled himself toward its core, plasma rifle firing in a deadly spiral. His multiverse variants converged, creating a vortex of coordinated strikes that tore through constructs and Titans alike. Sparks and molten fragments flew in every direction, arcs of energy colliding in chaotic symphony across the city. Vader sensed an opening. With the Force, he slammed a skyscraper fragment into the humanoid, destabilizing its connection to the rift. Jedi amplified the attack, hurling beams of concentrated energy into the humanoid's core. Master Chief landed atop the humanoid's shoulder, fists and rifle striking in rapid succession. Sparks flew, energy arcs flared, and molten fragments of the battlefield twisted into impossible spirals. The humanoid staggered, revealing cracks in its armor, but the shadows above the rift pulsed with awareness, as if feeding from the chaos below. From the rift's core, new incomprehensible shapes stretched across the sky, titanic beyond imagination. Their forms twisted space, absorbing light and radiating energy that warped the battlefield further. The humanoid command unit emitted a scream-like pulse, projecting tendrils that ripped through the air, attempting to crush Master Chief and Vader. The plasma bolts, lightsaber arcs, and force energy clashed against the tendrils, sparks, and molten fragments flying in every direction. The fractured city was now an apocalyptic landscape of floating debris, twisted skyscrapers, and arcs of energy, all bending under multiversal forces. Master Chief activated the full multiverse-calibrated fusion cannon, firing a concentrated beam directly into the humanoid's core, while simultaneously deploying gravitic pulse grenades across titans and constructs. Sparks, arcs of molten energy, and violet light exploded outward, sending shockwaves that destabilized floating debris and bent gravity. Vader hurled a massive piece of Coruscant's crust via the Force, slamming into the humanoid's body. Jedi amplified the assault with concentrated force beams, creating a combined strike of unimaginable destructive power. The humanoid faltered, but the incomprehensible shadows pulsed with intelligence, absorbing fragments of energy and matter, feeding from the battlefield chaos. Cortana's voice rang in Chief's helmet, existence-level threat escalation imminent, maximum offensive output required. Master Chief's visor reflected the rift, the humanoid, and the shadows above, calculating the next strike. Thrusters ignited, plasma rifles fired in spirals, gravitic grenades detonated with destructive precision, all synchronized across multiverse variants. The humanoid staggered further, its energy flaring violently, tendrils lashing out as titans fell and constructs disintegrated. Sparks, molten fragments, and arcs of violet, red, and blue energy erupted across the battlefield. The incomprehensible shadows observed, aware of the resistance forming below. Master Chief, Vader, and the Jedi had created a temporary upper hand, but the rift's true power, the universal awakening lurking within, was only beginning to stir. The final image of Segment 2.2 lingered, a shattered Coruscant skyline, floating debris twisting in impossible directions, Master Chief and his multiverse variants firing plasma volleys at the humanoid, Vader spinning his lightsaber in arcs of crimson, incomprehensible shadows observing from the rift above, energy arcs and molten fragments illuminating apocalyptic chaos. The battle had escalated to a planetary destruction scale, and the universal awakening promised stakes beyond comprehension. The sky above Coruscant had become a kaleidoscope of impossible colors: violet lightning, molten orange streaks, and neon blue arcs carving through darkness. The rift now dominated the horizon, twisting gravity, bending light, and distorting time. From its depths emerged multiversal echoes, alternate reality variants of the incomprehensible shadows, each colossal, each radiating raw energy that dwarfed even the titans below. Cortana's voice crackled urgently. Multiverse-level threat detected. Probability of survival for planetary forces, less than 1%. Maximum offensive synchronization required. Master Chief ignited Mjolnir thrusters, launching toward the humanoid command unit, plasma rifles firing in deadly spirals. His multiverse variants coalesced into a perfect formation, coordinated strikes tearing through constructs, titans, and rift echoes alike. Sparks and molten fragments erupted across floating debris, arcs of energy colliding midair, twisting the fractured city into an apocalyptic canvas. Each volley tore through the battlefield, creating shockwaves that bent skyscrapers and flipped floating streets like paper. Vader leapt from a fractured platform, spinning his lightsaber in wide arcs, red energy colliding with violet arcs from the humanoid command unit. The Force radiated outward, hurling debris, flipping titans, and redirecting plasma bursts. Jedi channeled concentrated force beams, combining attacks to stabilize civilians and strike rift distortions. Sparks, molten energy, and neon arcs illuminated the battlefield in blinding bursts, each strike reshaping the multiversal chaos. The humanoid command unit, partially fused with the rift's energy, extended colossal tendrils that warped gravity, hurling constructs and titans across the battlefield. One tendril struck Chief mid-air, sending him smashing into a floating fragment of a skyscraper. Sparks flew as his armor flared from kinetic absorption. Yet before the humanoid could capitalize, the multiverse variants coordinated a simultaneous strike: plasma bolts, gravitic pulse grenades, and kinetic slams converging in perfect timing. The humanoid staggered, energy flaring violently. From the rift, The multiverse echoes of the incomprehensible shadows descended, each pulse sending tremors across Coruscant's surface. Their massive forms emitted waves of energy that bent reality, flattened light, and twisted time locally. Titans responded instinctively to their presence, coordinated with the humanoid command unit. Plasma beams, energy arcs, and gravitational pulses collided in a symphony of destruction that lit the night sky like a storm of molten lightning. Master Chief calculated a high-risk, high-reward trajectory, launching directly toward the humanoid's core with thrusters flaring. Gravimetric pulse grenades detonated mid-air, creating a localized singularity that disrupted titans and constructs simultaneously. Plasma bolts streaked in precise spirals, arcs of neon and violet energy exploding upon impact. Sparks, molten debris, and fractured street fragments cascaded across the battlefield, illuminating Chief's glowing visor and reflecting off his armor in blinding flashes. Vader surged forward with a hurricane of force energy, slamming debris and titans into the humanoid's vulnerable points. Jedi amplified the assault, creating concentrated beams of force energy that collided with plasma volleys. The humanoid's tendrils writhed violently, attempting to manipulate the battlefield, but the combined offensive was relentless. Sparks and arcs of molten energy illuminated floating streets, shattered skyscrapers, and debris spinning in impossible angles. The incomprehensible shadows above, sensing resistance, coordinated energy pulses that warped the battlefield further. One massive pulse tore through floating platforms, sending fragments into orbit, while another flattened streets, leaving molten scars. Master Chief and his variants reacted instantly, thrusters flaring, rifles blazing, plasma arcs colliding mid-air, carving paths through the titanic adversaries. Sparks, molten fragments, and arcs of energy created a multiverse-level spectacle of chaos. The humanoid command unit roared, emitting pulses that twisted gravity and time around Chief and Vader. Yet the multiverse variants converged their attacks. Plasma streams, gravitic pulses, and kinetic strikes intersecting at the humanoid's core. Sparks, molten arcs, and violet light exploded outward, sending shockwaves that flipped titans and scattered constructs. Coruscant's fractured skyline floated in a chaotic ballet, illuminated by arcs of energy, molten debris, and neon streaks. From the rift, new incomprehensible shadows pulsed, stretching across multiple planes, observing the battlefield. Sparks and molten fragments collided mid-air as Master Chief launched a high-velocity strike, gravitic grenades detonating with explosive precision. Vader hurled skyscraper fragments through the Force, slamming into the humanoid, while Jedi amplified the assault with focused beams. The humanoid staggered violently, veins glowing wildly, energy arcs snapping across the battlefield in chaotic brilliance. Despite staggering, the humanoid whispered, "All realities will awaken, and only I will endure." The rift pulsed violently, shadows stretching across dimensions, signaling that the next wave of attacks would exceed planetary destruction, reaching multiversal-scale annihilation. Master Chief, Vader, and Jedi prepared for the next escalation, fully aware that the incomprehensible forces above were aware, intelligent, and infinitely patient. Sparks, arcs of energy, and molten debris illuminated the battlefield as Coruscant became a multiverse-scale war theater, the first of many reality-shattering confrontations to come. The final image lingered. Master Chief and multiverse variants firing coordinated plasma volleys, Vader spinning his lightsaber beside him, humanoid command units staggering, titanic incomprehensible shadows emerging from the rift above, molten debris and energy arcs illuminating fractured cityscape, a multiverse-scale battlefield of apocalyptic chaos. Coruscant's skyline had become a storm of chaos. Floating skyscrapers twisted into impossible spirals, molten streets hovered mid-air, and the rift above crackled violently, pulsing with energy that bent light, gravity, and even time. From the rift, the incomprehensible shadows stretched across multiple dimensions, colossal beyond comprehension, radiating waves of energy that distorted reality on a planetary scale. Sparks and arcs of molten energy streaked across the fractured city, illuminating the battlefield in surreal brilliance. Cortana's voice resonated urgently in Master Chief's helmet. Existence-level threat escalation detected. Probability of planetary survival, less than 0.5%. Initiate maximum offensive protocol. Master Chief's thrusters ignited with blinding intensity, propelling him through debris and energy arcs toward the humanoid command unit fused with the rift. Plasma bolts streaked from his rifle in synchronized spirals, cutting through titanic constructs and rift distortions. His multiverse variants formed a deadly formation around him, converging in coordinated volleys of gravitic pulse grenades, kinetic strikes, and plasma streams that tore through the battlefield. Sparks, molten fragments, and arcs of neon energy collided mid-air, twisting Coruscant's skyline into surreal, apocalyptic patterns. Vader leapt from a floating fragment, red lightsaber spinning in arcs of deadly precision. The force radiated outward, hurling debris, flipping titans, and redirecting plasma bursts with perfect timing. Jedi rallied across floating streets and debris, channeling concentrated force beams, stabilizing civilians, and striking titanic adversaries with blinding precision. Sparks, molten arcs, and energy streams collided in mid-air, creating shockwaves that warped the floating city blocks and twisted skyscrapers like molten metal. The humanoid command unit unleashed an array of reality-warping pulses. Gravity inverted mid-air, plasma bolts twisted unpredictably, and time locally slowed, making every movement heavy, chaotic, and deadly. One colossal tendril swung toward Master Chief, smashing a floating skyscraper fragment into orbit. Chief ignited thrusters, maneuvering mid-air with surgical precision, while firing plasma volleys into the humanoid's exposed core. Sparks erupted, arcs of energy flashed, and molten debris scattered in every direction, illuminating his armor with blinding brilliance. From the rift, the incomprehensible shadows pulsed violently, sending multiversal shockwaves across Coruscant. Each pulse bent reality, flattened light, and distorted gravity. Titans responded, hurling constructs and debris with destructive precision, synchronized with the humanoid's commands. Plasma streams from Master Chief's variants collided mid-air with arcs of violet and molten energy, producing explosions that scattered debris and twisted the floating cityscape in impossible angles. Vader surged forward, spinning his saber, creating a hurricane of force energy that slammed Titans into each other and deflected the humanoid's tendrils. Jedi amplified the assault, channeling beams of concentrated force energy that intersected with plasma volleys. Sparks and molten arcs collided mid-air, cascading across the battlefield, illuminating the twisted, floating skyscrapers and molten streets. The humanoid staggered, energy flaring wildly, tendrils writhing in desperation. Master Chief activated his multiverse-calibrated fusion cannon, firing a concentrated beam directly into the humanoid's core. Plasma bolts, gravitic grenades, and kinetic strikes from variants converged simultaneously, producing a multiverse-level explosion. Sparks and arcs of violet, neon, and red energy erupted, sending shockwaves across floating debris, twisting skyscrapers and molten streets. Titans staggered, constructs disintegrated, and the humanoid faltered, revealing cracks in its previously impervious armor. The incomprehensible shadows pulsed in response, absorbing fragments of energy and matter, bending the battlefield further. One colossal pulse shattered floating streets, hurling fragments into orbit, while another distorted light and gravity, flattening city blocks. Master Chief and variants reacted instantly, thrusters blazing, plasma rifles firing in spirals, gravitic grenades detonating with precise timing. Sparks, molten fragments, and arcs of energy collided in chaotic symphony across the battlefield, creating surreal, multiverse-scale visuals. Vader hurled a massive floating debris fragment through the Force, slamming it into the humanoid's armor. Jedi amplified the strike with concentrated beams, converging plasma and Force energy on the core. Sparks, arcs of molten energy, and fragments erupted, twisting gravity and sending constructs spiraling into floating debris. The humanoid screamed, veins flaring, but the incomprehensible shadows pulsed with awareness, signaling that a universal awakening was stirring. Master Chief, breathing steadily through Mjolnir's systems, scanned the battlefield. Cortana's voice rang clear. Existence-level threat imminent. Probability of success unknown. Recommend maximum offensive convergence. With a precise leap, Chief and his variants fired the final coordinated volley. Plasma spirals, gravitic pulses, and kinetic strikes converging on the humanoid's core. Sparks, arcs of molten and neon energy erupted outward, shockwaves distorting the floating city, and titans fell mid-air, fractured and disintegrated. The humanoid faltered further, yet its voice echoed through twisted dimensions. All realities will awaken, and only I will endure. Above, the shadows of the rift pulsed, colossal, intelligent, and patient, signaling that the true scale of the awakening had yet to begin. Sparks, arcs, and molten debris collided, the battlefield illuminated in apocalyptic brilliance. Master Chief, Vader, and Jedi prepared for the inevitable escalation, fully aware that the incomprehensible forces above were watching, calculating, and ready to strike across multiple realities simultaneously. The final image lingered, shattered, floating skyscrapers twisting in impossible patterns. Master Chief and multiverse variants firing plasma at humanoid core, Vader spinning saber beside him, incomprehensible shadows looming from rift above, molten fragments and neon arcs illuminating the multiverse-scale battlefield. Coruscant itself seemed suspended between realities, a harbinger of universal-scale destruction yet to come. Coruscant was no longer recognizable. Entire districts floated like shards of glass in an endless void. The rift above pulsed violently. The incomprehensible shadows now fully emerged, massive, shape-shifting, and radiating energy that warped gravity, time, and light simultaneously. The humanoid command unit hovered beneath them, partially fused with the rift, its purple veins flaring with chaotic intensity. Sparks, molten fragments, and arcs of neon energy streaked across the floating city, twisting reality into impossible geometries. Cortana's voice rang in Chief's helmet. Multiverse-level collapse imminent. Probability of survival, less than 0.3%. Maximum offensive convergence advised. Master Chief ignited Mjolnir thrusters, launching into the war-torn airspace. Plasma bolts fired in spirals, cutting through titans and constructs. His multiverse variants formed a synchronized strike force, each move calculated to destabilize the humanoid command unit and the colossal shadows above. Sparks erupted with each impact, arcs of violet, red, and blue energy colliding mid-air, bending floating streets and shattered skyscrapers. The battlefield had become a kaleidoscope of multiversal destruction. Vader leapt from a fractured tower, spinning his lightsaber, red arcs slicing through molten debris. The Force radiated outward in hurricane waves, flipping titans and hurling constructs into the rift. Jedi combined Force energy, stabilizing civilians, forming protective barriers, and striking titanic adversaries with concentrated beams. Sparks, molten arcs, and energy streams illuminated floating streets in surreal, apocalyptic brilliance. The humanoid command unit unleashed a pulse that warped gravity and slowed time locally. Titans and constructs attacked in perfect coordination, their movements amplified by rift energy. One colossal tendril struck Master Chief midair, sending him smashing into a floating skyscraper. Sparks erupted as his armor flared from kinetic absorption. Yet, with split-second precision, His multiverse variants launched a coordinated plasma volley and gravitic grenade detonation, striking the humanoid's exposed core. Violet arcs, molten fragments, and neon sparks exploded, illuminating the shattered city. Above, the incomprehensible shadows pulsed violently, sending multiversal shockwaves that flattened floating streets and twisted skyscrapers. Each pulse distorted gravity and time, yet the combined assault of Master Chief, Vader, and Jedi continued. Thrusters ignited, plasma rifles fired in spirals, gravitic grenades detonated in precise synchronization. Sparks and molten fragments cascaded, arcs of neon energy lighting the apocalyptic battlefield. Vader hurled a massive debris fragment through the Force, striking the humanoid's core, while Jedi amplified it with concentrated beams. Sparks, arcs of molten energy, and fragments exploded in blinding flashes. Titans faltered, constructs shattered, and the humanoid staggered violently. Its veins glowed brighter, but cracks now spread across its armor, exposing the chaotic core beneath. Master Chief activated the multiverse-calibrated fusion cannon, firing a concentrated beam into the humanoid's core. Plasma, gravitic pulses, and kinetic strikes converged in perfect synchronization, producing a multiverse-shattering explosion. Sparks and arcs of violet, red, and blue energy erupted, sending shockwaves across floating debris, twisted skyscrapers, and molten streets. The humanoid screamed, energy surging wildly as cracks spread across its body. The incomprehensible shadows pulsed in response, absorbing fragments of energy and matter, bending reality further. One colossal pulse shattered floating streets, hurling fragments into orbit, while another flattened city blocks, twisting the battlefield. Sparks and molten fragments collided as Master Chief and variants launched a high-velocity assault, firing spirals of plasma, detonating gravitic grenades, and striking with precise kinetic impacts. Vader spun his lightsaber, creating arcs of red energy that clashed with violet pulses. Jedi amplified the attack with force beams, converging plasma and force energy on the humanoid's core. Sparks, arcs of molten energy and debris exploded outward, bending gravity and distorting reality. The humanoid faltered, veins flaring, energy arcs snapping across the battlefield. Finally, the humanoid staggered completely, on the brink of collapse. Its voice echoed through twisted dimensions. All realities will awaken, and only I will endure. Above, the incomprehensible shadows pulsed, colossal, intelligent, and patient, signaling that the true scale of the multiversal awakening had yet to begin. Sparks, arcs, and molten debris collided across the battlefield, illuminating floating skyscrapers and streets twisted in impossible patterns. The final image lingered. Master Chief and multiverse variants firing coordinated plasma volleys, Vader spinning his lightsaber beside him, the humanoid command unit faltering, incomprehensible shadows looming from the rift above, molten fragments and neon arcs illuminating a multiverse-scale battlefield. Coruscant itself seemed suspended between realities, a harbinger of existence-shattering consequences yet to unfold. The rift above Coruscant had expanded beyond comprehension, a jagged tear in reality stretching into multiple dimensions. From its depths poured cosmic light and shadow, twisting the skyline into impossible geometries, turning floating debris into spirals of molten glass and neon energy. The incomprehensible shadows hovered like colossal titans of thought, radiating waves that flattened light, inverted gravity, and fractured time itself. Master Chief's visor flickered with multiversal analysis. Existence-level threat confirmed. Probability of planetary and dimensional survival, less than 0.2%. Initiate maximum response protocol. Master Chief ignited his Mjolnir thrusters, propelling himself into the swirling chaos above floating Coruscant streets. Plasma rifles fired in calibrated spirals, striking titanic constructs, and the humanoid command unit fused with the rift. His multiverse variants formed a deadly formation, each movement synchronized across realities. Sparks, molten fragments, and arcs of violet, neon, and red energy streaked across the floating cityscape, creating a storm of multiversal destruction. From the rift emerged new entities, cosmic-scale beings radiating light and shadow, some humanoid, others impossible in shape, each wielding powers that could twist reality. One colossal figure, glowing with golden white energy, extended a hand toward the humanoid command unit, manipulating the battlefield with waves that stabilized floating debris and deflected titans. Another entity, cloaked in shadow and pulsing violet energy, hurled gravitational pulses that bent skyscrapers and hurled constructs like paper. Cortana's voice cut through the chaos. Multiversal level ally detection. Partial. Recommend coordinated engagement. Vader spun his red lightsaber, arcs slicing through molten debris, while Jedi amplified the assault with concentrated force energy. Sparks erupted with every strike, molten fragments collided mid-air, and plasma volleys streaked across the floating city. The humanoid command unit responded, extending tendrils of energy that warped gravity and time locally. One massive tendril struck Master Chief mid-air, sending him crashing into a floating fragment of a skyscraper. Sparks and molten fragments erupted from the impact, illuminating his armor as thrusters flared. The new cosmic allies engaged the incomprehensible shadows, producing explosions that lit the rift with blinding energy. Sparks of neon, violet and gold, collided mid-air, bending reality further. Titans staggered, constructs disintegrated, and the humanoid command unit reeled from the combined onslaught. Master Chief and variants fired precise plasma volleys, gravitic grenades detonating with synchronized timing, arcs of molten energy colliding with the humanoid's armor. The battlefield had become an apocalyptic tapestry of floating skyscrapers, molten streets, and multiverse-scale chaos. Vader hurled a massive debris fragment through to the Force, smashing into the humanoid command unit while Jedi channeled beams of concentrated energy. Sparks, molten arcs, and neon fragments collided in explosive brilliance. The humanoid staggered, veins flaring violently, yet the incomprehensible shadows above pulsed with awareness, radiating energy that threatened to fracture multiple realities simultaneously. Master Chief activated his multiverse-calibrated fusion cannon, firing a concentrated beam at the humanoid's core. Plasma bolts, gravitic pulses, and kinetic strikes from all variants converged, producing a shockwave that destabilized titans and constructs alike. Sparks, arcs of molten energy, and floating debris erupted across the battlefield, twisting gravity and warping floating skyscrapers. The humanoid screamed, energy surging wildly as cracks spread across its armor. The incomprehensible shadows reacted instantly, absorbing fragments of energy, bending reality further. One colossal pulse flattened multiple floating streets, hurling fragments into orbit, while another twisted the battlefield with waves that bent light, gravity, and time. Master Chief and variants reacted in perfect synchronization, plasma rifles firing, gravitic grenades detonating, and kinetic strikes landing with precision. Sparks and molten fragments collided in midair, arcs of neon and violet energy lighting the apocalyptic battlefield. From the rift, more cosmic-scale entities emerged, some allies, some unknown threats. One radiated golden energy, stabilizing floating streets and hurling constructs at titanic shadows. Another cloaked in darkness, pulsing with violet energy, warped time and gravity around the humanoid command unit, creating openings for Master Chief, Vader, and Jedi. Sparks, arcs, and molten fragments collided mid-air, the floating city illuminated in surreal brilliance. Master Chief adjusted trajectory mid-air, plasma bolts streaking in spirals, targeting weak points in the humanoid's armor. Multiverse variants synchronized gravitic pulse grenades, detonating in precise timing to destabilize titans and constructs. Vader spun his lightsaber in deadly arcs, deflecting tendrils and hurling debris, while Jedi amplified attacks with concentrated force beams. Sparks, molten fragments, and arcs of neon energy collided, twisting floating skyscrapers, molten streets, and constructs into impossible geometries. The humanoid command unit staggered violently, energy veins flaring. Its voice echoed across twisted dimensions. All realities will awaken, and only I will endure. Above, the incomprehensible shadows pulsed with awareness, colossal, intelligent, and infinitely patient. Sparks, molten arcs, and debris collided across the floating city, illuminating multiverse-scale chaos. Master Chief, Vader, Jedi, and cosmic allies prepared for the next stage of battle, fully aware that the universal awakening had just begun. The final image lingered, shattered, floating skyscrapers twisting in impossible patterns, Master Chief and variants firing plasma at humanoid core, Vader spinning saber, incomprehensible shadows looming from the rift, molten debris and neon arcs illuminating a multiverse-scale battlefield. Coruscant itself hovered between realities, a harbinger of existence-shattering stakes. Coruscant no longer resembled a city. It had become a fractured nexus of floating streets, molten skyscraper shards, and spiraling debris, all suspended in impossible geometries. The rift above roared, a jagged tear in reality from which incomprehensible shadows poured, colossal and intelligent, radiating waves of energy that warped gravity, light, and time across multiple dimensions. Sparks, arcs of violet, neon, and molten energy streaked across the battlefield as every step threatened to tear reality apart. Cortana's voice cut through Master Chief's helmet. Multiverse fragmentation detected. Probability of survival for planetary and dimensional forces, less than 0.1%. Immediate full-scale offensive recommended. Master Chief ignited his thrusters, propelling himself into the apex of the chaos. Plasma bolts fired in spirals, cutting through titanic constructs, and the humanoid command unit fused with the rift. His multiverse variants coordinated deadly volleys of plasma streams, gravitic pulse grenades, and kinetic strikes that destabilized titans and disrupted rift echoes. Sparks, molten fragments, and arcs of neon energy collided mid-air, bending floating skyscrapers and twisting molten streets into impossible forms. The battlefield had become a kaleidoscope of multiverse-scale destruction. Vader spun his red lightsaber in a cyclone of deadly precision, hurling debris and flipping titans with the Force. Jedi combined concentrated beams of Force energy, stabilizing civilians and amplifying attacks against constructs and rift distortions. Sparks, molten arcs, and neon streaks collided mid-air, sending shockwaves that bent floating city blocks and distorted gravity. Every strike produced bursts of energy that illuminated the surreal battlefield, showing floating streets and skyscraper fragments spiraling in impossible angles. The humanoid command unit lashed out, tendrils of energy bending gravity and time locally. One colossal strike sent Master Chief crashing into a massive skyscraper fragment, sparks and molten arcs erupting from his armor. Yet, his multiverse variants immediately converged. Plasma bolts streaking in precise spirals, gravitic grenades detonating, destabilizing titans and constructs in synchronized harmony. Energy arcs and molten fragments collided in mid-air, illuminating the battlefield with blinding brilliance. From the rift, incomprehensible shadows pulsed violently, emitting waves that flattened floating streets, twisted skyscrapers, and inverted gravity. Sparks and arcs of molten energy collided with plasma volleys, kinetic strikes, and force beams. The humanoid command unit staggered under the combined assault of Master Chief, Vader, Jedi, and multiversal allies. Sparks and molten fragments flew in every direction, twisting the battlefield into apocalyptic, surreal geometry. A new cosmic ally emerged from the rift, a radiant, golden-white being towering above the floating debris. Its energy stabilized shattered city fragments, redirected titanic constructs, and fired streams of pure light that collided with violet energy from the shadows. Another dark, violet-cloaked entity pulsed malevolently, manipulating gravity and time around the humanoid command unit, creating openings for Master Chief and allies. Sparks, molten fragments, and arcs of neon energy collided, producing a visual spectacle of multiverse-scale chaos. Master Chief propelled himself toward the humanoid's core, firing plasma bolts in deadly spirals. Variants converged gravitic pulse grenades, detonating midair with perfect timing, destabilizing titans and constructs alike. Sparks and molten fragments collided, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy illuminating floating skyscrapers and streets twisted by gravity. Vader hurled debris with the Force, while Jedi amplified the strike with concentrated beams, converging plasma and Force energy on the humanoid's core. The humanoid screamed, veins flaring violently, energy arcs snapping across the battlefield. Incomprehensible shadows pulsed, absorbing energy fragments, bending the battlefield further. One colossal pulse flattened multiple floating streets, hurling debris into orbit, while another twisted gravity and time, threatening to tear the entire city and multiple realities apart. Master Chief and variants responded instantly, thrusters flaring, plasma rifles firing, gravitic grenades detonating in precise coordination. Sparks and molten fragments collided mid-air, arcs of energy illuminating the apocalyptic battlefield. Vader and Jedi combined maximum Force energy, creating shockwaves that flipped titans and redirected plasma streams. Sparks and molten arcs collided with kinetic strikes and plasma volleys, twisting skyscrapers and streets into spirals of molten neon chaos. Master Chief fired concentrated plasma volleys into the humanoid's core, while variants converged gravitic and kinetic attacks in perfect timing. The humanoid faltered, veins glowing brighter, cracks spreading across its armor, but incomprehensible shadows pulsed above, signaling the true multiverse awakening had begun. The final image lingered. Master Chief and multiverse variants firing plasma at humanoid core, Vader spinning his lightsaber, incomprehensible shadows and cosmic allies looming from the rift, floating Coruscant streets twisted into molten spirals, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy colliding mid-air. Apocalyptic multiverse-scale chaos on a planetary level, with multiple realities hanging in the balance. Reality itself began to fracture. Coruscant's floating streets spiraled like molten ribbons, skyscrapers twisted into impossible geometries, and molten fragments hovered in mid-air, suspended between collapsing timelines. The rift above had expanded beyond the planet, stretching into multiple realities simultaneously. From its depths, incomprehensible shadows pulsed with awareness, colossal beyond comprehension, radiating waves of energy that bent light, time, and gravity across dimensions. Sparks, arcs of violet, neon, and molten energy streaked across the battlefield, illuminating a fractured multiverse in chaos. Cortana's voice cut sharply through Master Chief's helmet. Cross-reality convergence detected. Probability of multiverse-level survival, less than 0.1%. Maximum offensive convergence required. Master Chief ignited his thrusters, propelling himself into the apex of the chaos. Plasma bolts streaked in perfect spirals, cutting through titanic constructs, and the humanoid command unit fused with the rift. Multiverse variants coordinated synchronized volleys of plasma, gravitic pulse grenades, and kinetic strikes, destabilizing titans and rift echoes simultaneously. Sparks and molten fragments collided mid-air, arcs of violet and neon energy wrapping around floating streets, twisting Coruscant's skyline into surreal, apocalyptic forms. Vader spun his lightsaber in a cyclone of crimson energy, hurling massive debris with the Force while redirecting plasma volleys from titans. Jedi concentrated beams of Force energy, stabilizing civilians, hurling constructs, and amplifying attacks against the humanoid command unit. Sparks, molten arcs, and neon streaks collided mid-air, sending shockwaves that warped floating skyscrapers and streets. Every strike produced bursts of energy that illuminated the surreal battlefield, showing floating debris spiraling into molten spirals. From the rift emerged more incomprehensible shadows, their colossal forms pulsing across multiple realities. Some distorted light into blinding brilliance, others inverted gravity, while some tore at the fabric of time itself. Sparks and molten fragments collided mid-air with plasma volleys, gravitic strikes, and force beams. The humanoid command unit staggered under the combined assault of Master Chief, Vader, Jedi, and newly arrived cosmic allies. Sparks and arcs of molten, violet, and neon energy collided across the battlefield, twisting floating skyscrapers and molten streets into impossible patterns. A radiant golden-white cosmic ally stabilized shattered city fragments and deflected titanic constructs with bursts of pure energy. Simultaneously, a dark, violet-cloaked entity pulsed malevolently, warping gravity and time around the humanoid command unit, creating openings for precise strikes. Sparks, arcs, and molten fragments collided, producing a multiverse-scale spectacle of destruction. Master Chief targeted the humanoid's core, firing calibrated plasma bolts in deadly spirals. Multiverse variants synchronized gravitic pulse grenades, detonating mid-air with perfect timing, destabilizing titans and constructs alike. Sparks and molten fragments collided, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy illuminating floating skyscrapers and streets warped by gravity. Vader hurled debris with the Force. Jedi amplified the strike with concentrated beams, converging plasma and force energy on the humanoid's core. The humanoid screamed, energy surging wildly, veins flaring as cracks spread across its armor. Incomprehensible shadows pulsed above, absorbing fragments of energy, bending reality further. One colossal pulse flattened floating streets, hurling debris into orbit, while another twisted gravity and time, threatening to fracture multiple realities at once. Master Chief and variants responded instantly, thrusters flaring, plasma rifles firing, gravitic grenades detonating in precise synchronization. Sparks and molten fragments collided mid-air, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy illuminating the apocalyptic battlefield. Vader and Jedi combined maximum force energy, creating a hurricane of energy that flipped titans, deflected plasma streams, and stabilized floating debris. Sparks and molten arcs collided with kinetic strikes and plasma volleys, twisting skyscrapers and streets into molten spirals. Master Chief fired concentrated plasma volleys into the humanoid's core, while variants converged gravitic and kinetic attacks in perfect timing. The humanoid faltered, veins glowing brighter, cracks spreading further across its armor, yet incomprehensible shadows above pulsed with awareness, signaling that the true multiversal awakening had begun. The final image lingered. Master Chief and multiverse variants firing plasma at humanoid core, Vader spinning his lightsaber, incomprehensible shadows and cosmic allies emerging from the rift. Floating Coruscant streets twisted into molten spirals, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy colliding mid-air. Apocalyptic, multiverse-scale chaos on a planetary and cross-reality level, with the fate of multiple realities hanging in the balance. The rift above Coruscant had grown into a gaping wound in existence, its edges tearing reality apart. Entire city districts floated like shattered glass in a kaleidoscope of molten streets, spiraling skyscrapers, and twisted debris. From the rift poured incomprehensible shadows, colossal, intelligent, and radiating waves of energy that bent light, gravity, and time across multiple realities. Sparks, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy streaked across the battlefield as floating debris collided and gravity itself fractured. Cortana's voice echoed urgently in Master Chief's helmet. Existence-level collapse imminent. Probability of survival for planetary and multiversal forces, less than 0.05%. Maximum offensive convergence required. Master Chief ignited his thrusters, propelling himself through spiraling debris. Plasma bolts streaked in deadly spirals, tearing through titanic constructs, and the humanoid command unit fused with the rift. His multiverse variants formed a coordinated assault. Gravitic pulse grenades detonating mid-air, kinetic strikes converging in perfect synchronization. Sparks, molten fragments, and arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy collided, twisting floating skyscrapers and streets into impossible forms. The battlefield had become an apocalyptic spectacle of multiverse-scale destruction. Vader spun his crimson lightsaber in a hurricane of energy, hurling massive debris with the Force, while redirecting plasma streams and tendrils of molten energy. Jedi amplified the assault, channeling concentrated force beams, stabilizing civilians, and striking titanic constructs with precision. Sparks, arcs, and molten energy collided mid-air, sending shockwaves that warped floating skyscrapers and streets, twisting them into spirals of molten chaos. Every impact flared with blinding brilliance, illuminating the fractured cityscape. The humanoid command unit retaliated, tendrils of energy warping gravity and slowing time locally. One colossal strike sent Master Chief crashing into a massive floating skyscraper fragment, sparks and molten arcs erupting from his armor. Yet his multiverse variants immediately converged, plasma bolts streaking, gravitic pulse grenades detonating, destabilizing titans and constructs with precision. Sparks and molten fragments collided mid-air, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy illuminating the apocalyptic battlefield. From the rift, the incomprehensible shadows pulsed violently, emitting waves that flattened floating streets, twisted skyscrapers, and inverted gravity. Sparks and arcs of molten energy collided with plasma volleys, gravitic strikes, and force beams. The humanoid command unit faltered under the combined assault of Master Chief, Vader, Jedi, and cosmic allies. Sparks and arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy collided across the battlefield, twisting floating skyscrapers and molten streets into impossible spirals. A radiant golden-white cosmic ally stabilized shattered city fragments and redirected titanic constructs. Simultaneously, a dark violet cloaked entity pulsed malevolently, manipulating gravity and time around the humanoid, creating openings for Master Chief and his variants. Sparks, molten fragments, and arcs of neon energy collided, producing a multiverse-scale spectacle of destruction. Master Chief targeted the humanoid's core, firing concentrated plasma volleys in deadly spirals. Variants converged gravitic pulse grenades, detonating mid-air, destabilizing titans and constructs. Sparks and molten fragments collided, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy illuminating floating skyscrapers and streets twisted by gravity. Vader hurled massive debris with the Force. Jedi amplified strikes with concentrated beams, converging plasma and force energy on the humanoid's core. The humanoid screamed, energy surging violently, veins flaring as cracks spread across its armor. Incomprehensible shadows pulsed above, absorbing fragments of energy, bending reality further. One colossal pulse flattened multiple floating streets, hurling debris into orbit, while another twisted gravity and time, threatening to fracture multiple realities at once. Master Chief and variants responded instantly, thrusters flaring, plasma rifles firing, gravitic grenades detonating with perfect synchronization. Sparks and molten fragments collided mid-air, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy illuminating the apocalyptic battlefield. Vader and Jedi combined maximum force energy, creating a hurricane of energy that flipped titans, deflected plasma streams, and stabilized floating debris. Sparks and molten arcs collided with kinetic strikes and plasma volleys, twisting skyscrapers and streets into molten spirals. Master Chief fired concentrated plasma volleys into the humanoid's core, while variants converged gravitic and kinetic attacks. The humanoid faltered, veins glowing brighter, cracks spreading further across its armor. The incomprehensible shadows above pulsed with awareness, signaling the true multiversal awakening had begun. The final image lingered. Master Chief and multiverse variants firing plasma at humanoid core, Vader spinning his lightsaber, incomprehensible shadows and cosmic allies emerging from the rift. Floating Coruscant streets twisted into molten spirals, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy colliding mid-air. Apocalyptic multiverse-scale chaos threatening the fabric of existence itself. The sky above Coruscant was no longer sky. It was a kaleidoscope of fracturing realities. Floating skyscrapers twisted into molten spirals, entire districts hovered like shattered glass in midair, and the rift above roared with incomprehensible energy. From its depths, the colossal shadows pulsed, radiating waves that bent light, gravity, and time across multiple realities simultaneously. Sparks, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy streaked across the battlefield, illuminating a city that existed in no single reality, but across a fractured multiverse. Cortana's voice cut through Master Chief's helmet. Existence-level threat confirmed. Probability of multiverse survival, less than 0.05%. Immediate universal-level convergence required. Master Chief ignited thrusters, accelerating into the apex of chaos. Plasma bolts fired in deadly spirals, cutting through titanic constructs, and the humanoid command unit fused with the rift. Multiverse variants converged. Gravitic pulse grenades detonating mid-air. Kinetic strikes striking with perfect timing. Sparks, molten fragments, and arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy collided mid-air, twisting floating skyscrapers and molten streets into impossible geometries. The battlefield had become an apocalyptic spectacle of cross-reality destruction. Vader spun his crimson lightsaber, arc slicing through molten debris, hurling titans with the Force while deflecting energy tendrils. Jedi amplified their assaults with concentrated beams of Force energy, stabilizing civilians and striking titanic constructs with precision. Sparks and molten arcs collided mid-air, sending shockwaves that warped floating skyscrapers and streets into molten spirals. Every strike flared with blinding brilliance, illuminating the fractured city. The humanoid command unit retaliated, tendrils warping gravity and slowing time locally. One massive strike sent Master Chief crashing into a floating skyscraper fragment, sparks and molten arcs erupting from his armor. Yet with split-second precision, his multiverse variants converged, plasma bolts streaking in spirals, gravitic grenades detonating, destabilizing titans and constructs alike. Sparks and molten fragments collided mid-air, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy illuminating the apocalyptic battlefield. From the rift, incomprehensible shadows pulsed violently, emitting multiversal shockwaves that flattened floating streets, twisted skyscrapers, and inverted gravity. Sparks and arcs of molten energy collided with plasma volleys, gravitic strikes, and force beams. The humanoid command unit staggered under the combined assault of Master Chief, Vader, Jedi, and cosmic allies. Sparks and arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy collided across the battlefield, twisting floating skyscrapers and molten streets into impossible spirals. The radiant golden-white cosmic allies stabilized shattered city fragments, deflecting titanic constructs with waves of pure energy. Simultaneously, a dark, violet-cloaked entity pulsed malevolently, warping gravity and time around the humanoid command unit, opening precise attack windows. Sparks, molten fragments, and arcs of neon energy collided, producing a multiverse-scale spectacle of destruction. Master Chief targeted the humanoid's core, firing concentrated plasma spirals. Variants synchronized gravitic pulse grenades, detonating mid-air, destabilizing titans and constructs. Sparks and molten fragments collided, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy illuminating floating skyscrapers and streets warped by gravity. Vader hurled massive debris with the Force, while Jedi amplified strikes with concentrated beams, converging plasma and Force energy on the humanoid's core. The humanoid screamed, veins flaring violently, energy arcs snapping across the battlefield. Incomprehensible shadows pulsed above, absorbing energy fragments, bending reality further. One colossal pulse flattened multiple floating streets, hurling debris into orbit, while another twisted gravity and time, threatening to fracture multiple realities simultaneously. Master Chief and variants responded instantly, thrusters blazing, plasma rifles firing, gravitic grenades detonating in perfect synchronization. Sparks and molten fragments collided midair, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy illuminating the apocalyptic battlefield. Vader and Jedi combined maximum Force energy, creating a hurricane that flipped Titans, deflected plasma streams, and stabilized floating debris. Sparks and molten arcs collided with kinetic strikes and plasma volleys, twisting skyscrapers and streets into molten spirals. Master Chief fired concentrated plasma volleys into the humanoid's core, while variants converged gravitic and kinetic attacks in perfect timing. The humanoid faltered, veins glowing brighter, cracks spreading further across its armor. Yet the incomprehensible shadows pulsed with awareness, signaling that the multiversal awakening had truly begun. Above, the rift surged, cracks in reality widening. Sparks and molten arcs danced across Coruscant's shattered skyline. Cosmic allies radiated golden and violet energy, combining with plasma, gravitic, and Force attacks into a blinding convergence of multiversal power. Master Chief propelled himself toward the humanoid's core, plasma cannon igniting, variants firing simultaneously. Vader spun his saber, deflecting energy tendrils, while Jedi channeled concentrated beams to amplify the final strike. Sparks, molten fragments, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy collided midair, illuminating floating skyscrapers twisted into impossible spirals. The humanoid command unit screamed one last time, its voice echoing across fractured dimensions. "All realities shall awaken, and only I will endure." Energy arcs exploded. Fragments of debris collided, and molten skyscrapers twisted violently as the battle reached an existence-shattering climax. Master Chief, Vader, Jedi, and cosmic allies unleashed their ultimate arsenal, converging plasma, gravitic, and Force energy into a singular, reality-piercing strike aimed at the humanoid's core. Sparks, arcs, and molten energy cascaded across Coruscant, a spectacle of multiversal devastation that threatened to unravel reality itself. The final image lingered. Master Chief and multiverse variants, firing plasma into the humanoid's core, Vader spinning his saber, incomprehensible shadows and cosmic allies emerging from the rift, floating Coruscant streets twisted into molten spirals, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy colliding midair. Apocalyptic, multiverse-scale chaos on a universal level, with the fate of all realities hanging in the balance. The remnants of Coruscant hung suspended across fractured realities, floating like shards in an endless void. Entire skyscrapers spiraled into molten chaos, molten streets twisted impossibly, and debris collided in slow-motion patterns dictated by fractured gravity. Above, the rift had ballooned into a jagged wound in existence itself. From its depths, incomprehensible shadows pulsed and twisted, colossal beyond comprehension, radiating energy that bent light, gravity, and time across multiple realities. Sparks, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy streaked across the battlefield, illuminating Coruscant in a surreal, multiverse-scale apocalypse. Cortana's voice rang urgent and sharp. Multiverse collapse confirmed. Probability of survival, less than 0.02%. Maximum offensive convergence advised. Universe-scale allies required. Master Chief ignited his thrusters, rocketing through spiraling debris. Plasma bolts streaked in calibrated spirals, cutting through titanic constructs, and the humanoid command unit fused with the rift. Multiverse variants coordinated synchronized volleys of plasma, gravitic pulse grenades, and kinetic strikes, destabilizing titans, rift echoes, and gravity distortions. Sparks, molten fragments, and arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy collided mid-air, twisting floating skyscrapers and streets into apocalyptic, surreal geometries. Vader spun his crimson lightsaber with precise, hurricane-like force, deflecting energy tendrils and hurling debris at constructs, while Jedi concentrated beams of force energy, amplifying attacks, stabilizing civilians, and striking titanic adversaries. Sparks and molten arcs collided mid-air, sending shockwaves that warped floating skyscrapers, streets, and debris into impossible spirals. Every strike flared with blinding brilliance, illuminating Coruscant's shattered skyline suspended across fractured realities. The humanoid command unit responded, tendrils extending violently, warping gravity, inverting time, and bending space locally. One massive strike sent Master Chief crashing into a floating skyscraper fragment, sparks and molten arcs erupting from his armor. Yet his multiverse variants converged instantly, plasma bolts streaking in perfect spirals, gravitic pulse grenades detonating, destabilizing titans and constructs. Sparks, arcs, and molten fragments collided mid-air, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy illuminating the apocalyptic battlefield. From the rift, incomprehensible shadows pulsed violently, emitting waves that flattened floating streets, twisted skyscrapers, and inverted gravity across multiple realities. Sparks and arcs of molten energy collided with plasma volleys, gravitic strikes, and force beams. The humanoid command unit staggered under the combined assault of Master Chief, Vader, Jedi, and newly emerging cosmic allies. Sparks, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy collided across the battlefield, twisting floating skyscrapers and molten streets into impossible, multiverse-scale spirals. A radiant, golden-white cosmic ally emerged, stabilizing shattered city fragments and redirecting titanic constructs with bursts of pure energy. Simultaneously, a dark violet-cloaked entity pulsed malevolently, manipulating gravity and time around the humanoid command unit, creating openings for precise strikes. Sparks, molten fragments, and arcs of neon energy collided, producing a multiverse-scale spectacle of destruction. Master Chief targeted the humanoid's core, firing concentrated plasma volleys in deadly spirals. Variants synchronized gravitic pulse grenades, detonating mid-air, destabilizing titans and constructs. Sparks and molten fragments collided, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy illuminating floating skyscrapers and streets warped by fractured gravity. Vader hurled massive debris with the Force, while Jedi amplified attacks with concentrated beams, converging plasma and force energy on the humanoid's core. The humanoid screamed violently, veins flaring, energy arcs snapping across the battlefield. Incomprehensible shadows pulsed above, absorbing energy fragments, bending reality further. One colossal pulse flattened multiple floating streets, hurling debris into orbit, while another twisted gravity and time, threatening to fracture multiple realities simultaneously. Master Chief and variants responded instantly, thrusters blazing, plasma rifles firing, gravitic grenades detonating in perfect synchronization. Sparks and molten fragments collided mid-air, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy illuminating the apocalyptic battlefield. Vader and Jedi combined maximum force energy, creating a hurricane that flipped titans, deflected plasma streams, and stabilized floating debris. Sparks and molten arcs collided with kinetic strikes and plasma volleys, twisting skyscrapers and streets into molten spirals. Master Chief fired concentrated plasma volleys into the humanoid's core, while variants converged gravitic and kinetic attacks. The humanoid faltered, veins glowing brighter, cracks spreading further across its armor. Incomprehensible shadows above pulsed with awareness, signaling that the true multiverse-scale awakening had begun. The final image lingered. Master Chief and multiverse variants firing plasma at humanoid core. Vader spinning his lightsaber. Incomprehensible shadows and cosmic allies emerging from the rift. Floating Coruscant streets twisted into molten spirals, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy colliding mid-air. Apocalyptic, multiverse-scale chaos threatening the collapse of existence itself. The rift had consumed Coruscant's skyline, expanding like a jagged scar across multiple realities. Entire districts hovered as shattered fragments, spiraling in molten chaos, twisted by fractured gravity. Sparks, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy streaked through the void as incomprehensible shadows pulsed above, radiating power that distorted light, time, and reality across dimensions. Master Chief's visor flashed, tracking anomalies. Ultimate multiversal antagonist detected. Probability of survival, less than 0.01%. Maximum offensive universal response required. Cortana's voice cut sharply through the chaos. All units, converge on primary threat locus. Existence-level countermeasures advised. Master Chief ignited thrusters, slicing through the spiraling debris. Plasma bolts streamed in calibrated spirals, cutting titanic constructs and rift-warped humanoid units. Multiverse variants synchronized gravitic pulse grenades, kinetic strikes, and plasma volleys, destabilizing titans and constructs simultaneously. Sparks, molten fragments, and arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy collided mid-air, twisting floating skyscrapers into impossible apocalyptic forms. Reality warped around each collision, fracturing into mirrored dimensions where echoes of the battlefield repeated infinitely. Vader spun his crimson lightsaber in a hurricane of precision, hurling massive debris with the Force while deflecting energy tendrils from incomprehensible shadows. Jedi unleashed concentrated Force beams, amplifying attacks against titanic constructs while stabilizing fragments of floating city. Sparks, arcs, and molten energy collided mid-air, sending shockwaves across the fractured cityscape. Every strike flared with blinding brilliance, illuminating multiple overlapping realities suspended in chaos. From the rift emerged a colossal form, the ultimate multiversal antagonist, a towering, humanoid abstract hybrid, its body composed of shifting cosmic energy, molten veins, and dark matter shadows. Its eyes burned like supernovae, and its tendrils bent gravity and time with every pulse. Sparks and arcs of molten energy collided with plasma volleys and force beams as it emitted a pulse that threatened to collapse multiple realities simultaneously. Master Chief and variants reacted instantly, firing coordinated plasma spirals, gravitic pulse grenades detonating in perfect timing, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy twisting around the colossal being. The humanoid command unit, now merging with the ultimate antagonist, roared, veins flaring violently, energy pulses snapping across the battlefield. One colossal strike inverted gravity across several floating districts, sending molten skyscraper fragments into spiraling chaos. Master Chief propelled himself toward the humanoid's core, plasma cannon igniting, variants converging gravitic and kinetic strikes, destabilizing constructs and titans. Sparks, molten fragments, and arcs of neon and violet collided in mid-air, illuminating the fractured multiverse battlefield. Vader and Jedi combined maximum Force energy, hurling debris and creating focused beams of concentrated multiversal energy aimed at weak points in the ultimate antagonist. Sparks, arcs, and molten fragments collided with plasma volleys, gravitic pulses, and Force strikes. Cosmic-scale allies radiated golden and violet energy, converging with Master Chief and variants to amplify attacks. The battlefield became a kaleidoscope of multiverse-scale destruction, floating streets, spiraling skyscrapers, and molten debris twisting in impossible forms. The ultimate antagonist extended tendrils of molten cosmic energy, warping time and gravity locally, sending shockwaves that inverted entire skyscrapers. Sparks and arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy collided midair with plasma, gravitic, and force strikes. Master Chief adjusted trajectory midair, firing concentrated plasma spirals, variants detonating gravitic pulse grenades precisely, destabilizing titans and constructs. Vader spun his saber, hurling debris with the Force. Jedi amplified the strike with concentrated beams. The humanoid faltered, cracks spreading across its armor, yet incomprehensible shadows pulsed, signaling the multiversal awakening had reached its apex. From the rift above, multiple realities collapsed and converged, forming spirals of molten neon and violet energy that threatened to consume Coruscant entirely. Sparks and molten fragments collided with plasma volleys, gravitic strikes, and force beams. Master Chief, Vader, Jedi, and cosmic allies unleashed a coordinated strike of unimaginable power, combining plasma, gravitic, force, and cosmic energy into a blinding beam aimed directly at the ultimate antagonist. Sparks, arcs, molten fragments, and gravity-warped debris collided midair, producing a multiverse-scaled explosion visible across multiple realities. The final image lingered. Master Chief and multiverse variants, firing a converged ultimate energy beam at the humanoid-ultimate antagonist fusion. Vader spinning his saber. Jedi channeling concentrated force energy. Incomprehensible shadows and cosmic allies emerging from the rift. Coruscant streets twisted into molten spirals across multiple realities. Arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy colliding midair. Apocalyptic, multiverse-scale chaos threatening the collapse of existence itself. Coruscant no longer resembled a city. It was a shattered nexus of molten streets, spiraling skyscrapers, and floating debris suspended across fractured realities. The rift above had expanded into a colossal wound in existence, jagged edges tearing at light, gravity, and time. Incomprehensible shadows pulsed with awareness, colossal and intelligent, radiating energy that warped entire realities simultaneously. Sparks, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy streaked across the battlefield, illuminating a multiverse-scale apocalypse. Cortana's voice cut sharply through Master Chief's helmet. Universal collapse detected. Probability of survival, less than 0.01%. Maximum convergence of all offensive and cosmic assets required. Master Chief ignited thrusters, rocketing through spiraling debris, plasma bolts firing in calibrated spirals that carved through titanic constructs, and the humanoid command unit now fused with the ultimate multiversal antagonist. Multiverse variants converged, gravitic pulse grenades detonating mid-air, kinetic strikes colliding with plasma volleys in perfect synchronization. Sparks, molten fragments, and arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy collided, twisting floating skyscrapers and streets into impossible, apocalyptic geometries. Each strike fractured reality further, creating mirrored battlefields across converging multiversal layers. Vader spun his crimson lightsaber with hurricane precision, deflecting molten tendrils, hurling massive debris, and creating openings for concentrated force beams. Jedi amplified attacks, channeling raw force energy to destabilize titanic constructs while stabilizing civilians and fragments of floating city. Sparks, arcs, and molten energy collided mid-air, sending shockwaves across the fractured battlefield. Every strike flared with blinding brilliance, illuminating overlapping realities suspended in molten chaos. The ultimate antagonist pulsed violently, its body now a fusion of molten cosmic energy, dark matter shadows, and fractured reality shards. Its eyes burned like supernovae, tendrils warping gravity and bending time locally, sending shockwaves across multiple realities. Sparks and arcs of neon, violet and molten energy collided with plasma volleys, gravitic strikes, and force beams. Master Chief and multiverse variants fired converged plasma spirals and gravitic pulse grenades, destabilizing titans and constructs. Sparks, molten fragments, and arcs of neon and violet collided in midair, illuminating the apocalyptic battlefield. From the rift emerged hidden cosmic powers, beings of radiant golden-white energy, each towering above the floating debris. They emitted waves that stabilized shattered city fragments, redirected constructs, and amplified plasma, gravitic, and force attacks. Dark violet entities twisted gravity and time, creating openings for precise strikes against the ultimate antagonist. Sparks, molten fragments, and arcs of neon energy collided, producing a multiverse-scale spectacle of destruction. Master Chief targeted the humanoid's core fused with the ultimate antagonist, firing concentrated plasma spirals. Variants synchronized gravitic pulse grenades, detonating mid-air, destabilizing titans and constructs alike. Sparks and molten fragments collided, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy illuminating floating skyscrapers and streets twisted by fractured gravity. Vader hurled massive debris with the Force. Jedi amplified strikes with concentrated beams, converging plasma and force energy on the humanoid's core. The humanoid screamed, veins flaring violently, energy arcs snapping across the battlefield. One colossal pulse flattened floating streets, sending molten skyscraper fragments into orbit. Another twisted gravity and time, threatening to fracture multiple realities simultaneously. Master Chief and variants responded instantly, thrusters blazing, plasma rifles firing, gravitic grenades detonating with perfect synchronization. Sparks and molten fragments collided mid-air, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy illuminating the apocalyptic battlefield. Vader and Jedi combined maximum force energy, hurling titans, deflecting plasma streams, and stabilizing floating debris. Sparks and molten arcs collided with kinetic strikes and plasma volleys, twisting skyscrapers and streets into molten spirals. Master Chief fired concentrated plasma volleys into the humanoid's core, while variants converged gravitic and kinetic attacks. The ultimate antagonist faltered, cracks spreading further across its armor and molten cosmic body, yet incomprehensible shadows above pulsed with awareness, signaling the true universal awakening. The final image lingered. Master Chief and multiverse variants, firing a converged ultimate energy beam at the humanoid-ultimate antagonist fusion. Vader spinning his saber, Jedi channeling concentrated force energy, radiant cosmic allies stabilizing floating debris, dark violet entities manipulating gravity and time. Coruscant streets twisted into molten spirals across converging realities, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy colliding mid-air. Apocalyptic, multiverse-scale chaos threatening the collapse of all existence itself. Coruscant's shattered skyline was a kaleidoscope of molten spirals, floating debris, and inverted gravity districts, each fragment suspended across fractured realities. The rift above had widened into a yawning chasm in existence, pulsating with incomprehensible shadows and molten cosmic energy. Light bent unnaturally, time folded upon itself. Sparks, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy streaked across the battlefield, illuminating a multiverse-scale apocalypse. Cortana's voice reverberated. Universal convergence reached critical threshold. Probability of survival, less than 0.005%. Maximum offensive and cosmic convergence required. Reality destabilizing rapidly. Master Chief ignited thrusters, cutting through spiraling debris as plasma bolts tore through titanic constructs and the humanoid command unit fused with the ultimate multiversal antagonist. Multiverse variants fired converged plasma spirals and detonated gravitic pulse grenades, kinetic strikes perfectly timed. Sparks, molten fragments, and arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy collided midair, twisting floating skyscrapers and molten streets into impossible, surreal forms. Each collision fractured multiple overlapping realities, mirrored battlefields repeating infinitely across dimensions. Vader spun his crimson lightsaber like a cyclone, deflecting molten tendrils and hurling debris at titanic constructs, while Jedi channeled concentrated force energy, destabilizing adversaries and stabilizing fragments of floating city. Sparks and molten arcs collided midair with plasma, gravitic, and force strikes. Every strike flared with blinding brilliance, illuminating Coruscant across multiple fractured realities. The ultimate antagonist had fully awakened, a towering fusion of molten cosmic energy, dark matter shadows, and fractured reality shards. Its eyes burned like supernovae, and every pulse warped gravity and time locally, sending shockwaves that threatened to collapse multiple realities. Sparks and arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy collided with plasma volleys, gravitic strikes, and force beams. Master Chief and variants fired concentrated plasma spirals, gravitic pulse grenades detonating midair, destabilizing titans and rift constructs. Sparks and molten fragments collided midair, arcs of neon and violet illuminating the apocalyptic battlefield. From the rift emerged hidden cosmic powers, radiant golden-white beings towering above floating debris. Waves of energy stabilized shattered city fragments, redirected titanic constructs, and amplified plasma, gravitic, and force attacks. Dark violet entities twisted gravity and time, creating openings for Master Chief and variants to target the ultimate antagonist precisely. Sparks, molten fragments, and arcs of neon energy collided midair, producing a multiverse-scale spectacle of destruction. Master Chief targeted the humanoid's core fused with the ultimate antagonist, firing concentrated plasma spirals. Variants synchronized gravitic pulse grenades, detonating midair, destabilizing titans and constructs alike. Sparks and molten fragments collided, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy illuminating floating skyscrapers and streets warped by fractured gravity. Vader hurled massive debris with the Force, while Jedi amplified strikes with concentrated beams, converging plasma and force energy on the humanoid's core. The humanoid screamed violently, veins flaring, molten energy pulses snapping across the battlefield. One colossal strike flattened multiple floating streets, hurling skyscraper fragments into orbit. Another warped gravity and time, threatening to fracture multiple realities simultaneously. Master Chief and variants responded instantly, thrusters blazing, plasma rifles firing, gravitic grenades detonating in perfect synchronization. Sparks and molten fragments collided midair, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy illuminating the apocalyptic battlefield. Vader and Jedi combined maximum force energy, hurling titans, deflecting plasma streams, and stabilizing floating debris. Sparks and molten arcs collided with kinetic strikes and plasma volleys, twisting skyscrapers and streets into molten spirals. Master Chief fired concentrated plasma volleys into the humanoid's core, while variants converged gravitic and kinetic attacks. The ultimate antagonist faltered, cracks spreading further across its molten cosmic and dark matter body, yet incomprehensible shadows above pulsed, signaling the ultimate multiversal awakening had begun. The final image lingered. Master Chief and multiverse variants, firing the ultimate converged plasma beam at the humanoid-ultimate antagonist fusion, Vader spinning his saber, Jedi channeling concentrated force energy, radiant cosmic allies stabilizing debris, dark violet entities manipulating gravity and time. Coruscant streets twisted into molten spirals across converging realities, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy colliding midair, apocalyptic, multiverse-scale chaos threatening the collapse of all existence itself. The battlefield lay in fractured silence. Coruscant's skyline was unrecognizable. Molten streets spiraled in impossible arcs. Shattered skyscrapers floated like shards across overlapping realities, and gravity rippled unpredictably. The rift above remained a gaping wound, pulsating with incomprehensible shadows, molten energy, and fractured cosmic matter. Sparks and arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy crackled through the air, illuminating floating debris in a surreal multiverse-scale aftermath. Cortana's voice broke through Master Chief's helmet. Existence-level stabilization required. Probability of multiverse recovery, less than 0.005%. Residual threats detected. Critical cosmic anomalies present. Master Chief hovered in the fractured sky, plasma rifle still smoking from the ultimate converged volley. Multiverse variants assessed the aftermath, their thrusters flaring as kinetic fields stabilized fragments of debris. Sparks and molten fragments collided in slow motion, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy illuminating floating skyscrapers twisted by the recent apocalypse. Reality still trembled. Shards of alternate Coruscants shimmered into view, each a potential threat, each unstable and echoing with alternate versions of the battlefield. Vader spun his crimson lightsaber, cutting through rogue molten debris and deflecting residual energy arcs, while Jedi channeled concentrated force energy to stabilize floating districts. Sparks and arcs collided midair with plasma and gravitic remnants, sending shockwaves across the fractured cityscape. The ultimate antagonist lay fragmented, molten veins and cosmic matter still writhing, yet incomprehensible shadows above pulsed with awareness. Something far larger had been awakened by the convergence. From the rift, cosmic anomalies began to manifest. Colossal energy forms, radiant golden-white beings, and dark violet entities intertwined, each radiating power that bent multiple realities at once. Sparks, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy collided with residual plasma and gravitic forces from Master Chief and variants. The humanoid command unit's remnants convulsed violently, fragments of molten cosmic energy forming ephemeral constructs that defied logic and space. Master Chief propelled himself toward a fragment of the ultimate antagonist, plasma rifle blazing, variants converging to destabilize residual constructs. Sparks and molten fragments collided midair, arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy illuminating floating skyscrapers twisted by fractured gravity. Vader and Jedi combined maximum force energy, hurling massive debris at the remnants while stabilizing civilians and floating fragments. Sparks, molten arcs, and kinetic strikes collided in midair, producing a surreal multiverse-scale spectacle. Then, a pulse like a collapsing supernova erupted from the rift, warping time and gravity across all realities. Every skyscraper shard, molten street, and floating fragment shuddered violently. Sparks and arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy collided with plasma volleys, gravitic strikes, and force energy, illuminating the battlefield in a blinding spectacle. Master Chief and variants adjusted trajectory, firing converged plasma spirals at fragments, yet shadows above pulsed with a new, terrifying awareness. The remnants of the ultimate antagonist began to coalesce with the shadows, forming shapes too colossal and abstract to comprehend. Gravity twisted, floating streets spiraled into molten tornadoes, and skyscrapers bent into fractal spirals. Sparks, molten fragments, and arcs of neon, violet, and molten energy collided midair, producing a cosmic ballet of destruction. Master Chief, Vader, Jedi, and cosmic allies launched one final coordinated strike. Plasma, force, gravitic, and cosmic energy converging on the forming entity. Yet the rift's pulse responded with an overwhelming wave that threatened to undo reality itself. In the climactic frame, the battlefield froze in surreal multiverse-scale tension. Master Chief and multiverse variants, firing converged plasma spirals, Vader spinning his saber, Jedi channeling concentrated force energy, radiant cosmic allies stabilizing debris, dark violet entities manipulating gravity and time, molten and neon arcs colliding mid-air across fractured floating Coruscant fragments. The ultimate antagonist had fragmented, but the incomprehensible shadows pulsed, signaling the awakening of a far larger, universe-spanning threat beyond comprehension. Reality itself trembled, and the multiverse waited in suspended horror for the next cosmic convergence.